Yeah, no, we gotta do that.
There it
Why
is.
was it muted there? That's crazy. There's too many buttons, man. There's too many buttons. So I'm gonna start again as if we hadn't started already. Yay, I'm back from the Czech Republic.
You're back again.
I'm back again from the Czech Republic. Brno was an amazing little city. If you've never been to the Czech Republic, it's like a college town of like 60,000 kids, and they're out every night enjoying life, which is, I don't know if they're going to class, but they're enjoying life all night. Just wish it wasn't a pain to get there. You need a bus or a train to sort of get there. But I flew into Vienna. I actually met a driver in Vienna who drove me the like hour and a half in and picked me up too, which
That's pretty cool.
made it super convenient.
Yeah.
I mean, the train's cheaper, don't get me wrong, but like for your first time, I'm not good with trains because I just don't have a lot of practice with them, especially when everything's in a different language. Like I
Oh,
know I'm
yeah.
gonna make mistakes. So having a driver is kind of nice, but I'm privileged where I can hire the driver. Anyway,
I think the only train I've been in is in the airport in Dallas, I think.
dude, that's not a train, bro.
That's the only, like a trolley. I haven't been in a train.
No, I use the trains. Like definitely local. If you're in London or Berlin, you'll use a train. So, and I've been out to Cambridge. Like it's not that I can't handle the trains, but it's always a tiny bit stressful when you don't speak the language.
Especially that.
Especially an hour and a half away from an airport because you make that mistake and then it's just all super inconvenience there. But all right, so I had some time while I was in Brno, and I really wanted to restructure the project because I think we've come to the realization that this repo is just going to be this one chat system, and everything that we wanted to do from that list we can add to this project. I also wanted to better understand the data star stuff, which I do.
Yep.
I got rid of a lot of code there that we didn't need. So I also want to spend a tiny bit of time reviewing the cleanup of the data star.
For sure.
I have some opinions that I think Delaney will enjoy, but I've got some opinions that I want to share too with the data star stuff, especially after you see it. And there's some I don't like the way the plugin works because it messes up the linters. So I've turned the plugin. But let's take a look at the project structure first. Then we'll do the data star stuff, and then we'll look at the sort of the list. I think I want to continue to work with the terminal UI, to be honest with you, moving forward. But it's nice to have that there just because you have an example of how you can sort of
make it fancy.
Or I have just a different UI and how it would work, and I restructured some of that stuff too. But if I was going to work on another UI, I think I'd want to do a vanilla JS.
Okay.
Sort of, if we were going to do it, I think I'd rather have a traditional. But let's have that conversation later.
Yeah.
They're just my thoughts there. So, look, NG's on. Oh, every time they have a message, I see it. Okay. Oh, everybody can hear me now, so that's good. All right. So let me switch to. Let me get the right thing on this screen here. What are we going to do? I want to show some code. So let me... there we go. I don't even know what button I hit. I've got some code here. So this is the wrong project anyways, this service. So I'm in my bill/ play branch, which you see down here.
Yep.
And you can see actually, if I switch back to service, that we've got a project structure that I teach, right, in my service class, which made me feel much better. And we were getting so confused when we were working on front end and back end stuff that, and it was because our project structure was wrong. Like that was already a smell. Every time we made a mistake about we were on the front end and the back end, like that's a smell. That's real. If you're having trouble, who else can possibly handle that?
Exactly.
Like you can't. I thought originally I was going to have front ends and back ends at the root level, and I played with that. But you know, I always go back to this structure, dude. At the end of the day, no matter what, it just works. And so I'm going to review a little bit of the project structure changes and what you're going to have to do at home to make this work. So we now have moved everything out one layer. So we've got our API layer like we do. We've got our app layer, domain SDK, our business layer, domain. We don't have any SDK being support packages. We've got our foundational layer. Oh, we have to make a decision too on the data star if we want to rip out the chai router and use ours. I don't know how important that is. We'll see how we feel about that. But having two different routers isn't necessarily
it's not needed.
Not great. But if you were going to be doing the whole front end in JavaScript, you'd have it anyway. But so foundational packages. So our client stuff that created that sort of client boilerplate code, I put here as a foundational package. And so you'll see that as well with some storage support. This is stuff that we had up there.
See, and that makes more sense to me now, seeing it there, because we were having to refer to it a lot, and it was kind of like the base for both UIs.
It is, right?
So,
it's foundational, right? It doesn't matter what the UI is,
exactly.
As long as it's being written in Go, obviously. So I moved it to a foundation. I didn't think it was app layer support, right? So in this project structure, if you take the service class, the idea is that at the API layer, we have the different binaries that we're building. So here is the browser UI code. So this is Datastar. It does run as a service. So I put it under services. And then we have our CAP, which is our client access point. That runs as a service. But our TUI runs as a binary. It's not a service, right? It's like a CLI tool or a client app. So I put that under clients because that's sort of what it is. I still had the UI package that we needed. Code got very, very small at this level because of the foundational package. And then you have sort of tooling where we still have our log fump and our hack, right?
Gotcha.
But this makes a lot more sense because it, even from a mental model, we know that our browser UI always runs as a sort of service. I didn't want to put the browser UI in the CAP. We had talked a little bit about that with Delaney, right? Where the CAP could also serve the browser UI. This is what we do at Ardan, right?
Okay.
You know how we have our back-end APIs, and then you write the front ends in JavaScript, and then we build the static websites. We have the same back-end serve the JavaScript. So we could do this in a way where if we were to build a JavaScript front end, right, I would probably add the front end high-level layer here. And then we would have the CAP say serve that sort of JavaScript. But so this runs as its own service. Now I could move the UI package into CAP and have CAP again both be the back end and serve the front end here. But I hesitate to do it because right now I really want this service to have a single focus, which is client access protocol related stuff, and then have the front ends sort of be independent of that, right? But let's say we were gonna publish this live in Cloud Run, and we chose that this was gonna be our UI, then I would integrate these two together into a single service. So I wouldn't have to deploy two services in Cloud Run. But then again, I don't really want to use Datastar. So if we were going to do that, I would spend time here on the show doing a vanilla JS version of this. Again, I want to have conversations around why I feel that way. So I'm separating this. I don't want to intermix right now the front end stuff into into the cap at the end of the day. Plus, our front end right now requires some form of storage. And
Yes.
all the storage that we've used at this point happens to be local data files, right?
Yep.
That you now see under Zarf here. So if we were even wanting to deploy this into a cloud run, that storage would have to move to a database or something, right?
Which was the whole thing we're trying to avoid.
We're trying to avoid this centralization. We want to keep this as decentralized as possible. So if you were to mix the front end code with the back end code here, you'd lose some of that decentralization that you would want.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, any client that we build for this should be a client that runs locally, not necessarily from the cloud, right?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? But this is a constraint I'm putting on us because I really want this to be decentralized and highly distributed. And so you could see where you could start to lose that. Where in a centralized app, who cares? You've got the centralized database. You got a centralized service. You have that sort of flexibility here. So I really don't want to bring these two things together, but it is a service at the end of the day. It's even using its own sort of chi, I don't know what that router is and all that. So I probably won't do anything with it, but it's there, okay? Then at the app layer, which is the APIs that we're extending out of CAP right now, right?
Yep.
We had the connect. Now, arguably, when we review the Datastar stuff, it also exposes a API.
Yep.
If we were going to do Datastar right, we would want a Datastar domain. Again, maybe we do this. I don't know yet to kind of show it. But should the CAP be hosting the Datastar backend? No, not right. It wouldn't be the CAP, but it doesn't mean that we can't have a domain here called domain Datastar app, which provides the routes that are needed by the data. Maybe we do it just so you sort of see it.
Yeah,
okay.
that would be cool.
Maybe that's what we do. And then you have support packages for errors, middleware, MUX. At the domain level right now, from a CAP perspective, right, we had these APIs that handled the handshake and the other stuff. None of that went away.
Yep.
And the different potential storage layers right now, it's just a memory one, right? So we've got that. And then we've got our foundational stuff and then all the data here. So this structure, I think, lends itself better to mental models. You're already sort of comfortable with this structure because I use it everywhere.
Yeah, it's
I
familiar.
don't just teach it, I use it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go into here. And I've got the pull request. Oh, no, there's somebody else's pull request. Let's create a pull request where we're going to compare. This always screwed me up that they do this from right to left.
Yes, me too.
I don't know why somebody thought that was like, when I was first learning Git in this system, the fact that this was right to left.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
It like goes against normal reading.
Yeah. Why? I don't understand it other than maybe a visualization of a branch sort of says, this was your master, you've extended or extended off of this, and now you're coming back. Up here. Yeah, dude, I don't know, man. Like that for the longest time. See, when you understand the Git semantics better, then you sort of, okay, I get it. But when you're first learning something and you don't understand the semantics and then that's happening to you, yeah, dude, from
like a UI perspective, it's a little like wild. It's a little confusing for me.
Okay, so I'm gonna merge this. Wait a second. Let me go back to my pull request. Bill play. I want to squash and merge. I don't want to just merge. So I want all those commits to be in a single commit.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
And clean up the history that way, and then if I ever wanted to roll that back, I can roll the whole thing back as opposed to
each commit
20 commits.
Yeah.
So I like my branches to be the ability to hit, you know how you hit Command S all the time to save?
Yep.
I push all the time to save. But now when we're going to merge it into the main branch, it's a squash and merge. So it's like one big change. Right?
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to squash and merge. See, and then I just get rid of all of the little silly comments that I had. And I could put another comment there for this particular new commit, right? Which I won't do. I'll just do that. So, or, I can even just say new project structure. Now, I have a problem. I don't know what the idiom is on Git to start that with a capital or not. So I tend not to do that, just to keep everything lowercase. I have no idea what the actual idiom is.
That's how I've been
I
doing
don't
it.
enforce things anyway, but most of the time, you could see how I just don't do a case sensitivity thing there. But I don't know if what the actual idiom is for that. But all right, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do the thing Kevin hates the most.
Yep, delete
the rope branch, but I make him do that. I need the remote to be clean. I hate seeing branches out here and not knowing if they're still needed, still valuable, what we need. Keep the local branch all you want, right? So watch now. Oh, I didn't move the terminal over there. So let's do this. So if I do this now, I can do a git switch main, right? Oh, what does this thing? Oh, the ZAR files is, so I'm going to ignore that. I should be able to do a git pull. There it is. I've pulled it all down. I might have to fix this thing because of the other stuff. But if I do a git branch all, right, you can see remote, it's gone. When I do a git pull, I have it do a fetch purge auto magically in the config. I don't know where that, I think that config is.
Okay, yeah, because I run the git fetch.
Yeah, and you can do that, but I never remember where this is. There is a global git config somewhere. I don't know where it is. I don't think it's this, but yeah, it's probably dangerous for me to even be doing this live. But, oh, here's the git config. So if I do cat, yeah, that was bad. I just gave everybody my signing key. Now I got to change the key.
Oh, God.
Damn it. That's bad.
Living on the edge.
I told you, Bill, you shouldn't have done that. So now I got to change that key. Actually, I got to change that key almost now over here. Shit, dude. That was really, really dumb of me. Okay, hold on here. Oh, I cannot believe I just did that. Damn it. Damn it. Bill, you're an idiot. My brain said there's something in there that you shouldn't be showing. And it's this now, but that might be my public key. So I might be okay. I think that's my public key. Let me just triple check that is my public key, and then we're all good here. .ssh. So if I cat this out, I'm just looking at a couple things. Yeah, that's my public key. So we're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. Yeah, that's my public key.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I didn't do anything bad. No bad, Bill. Thank God, dude. I was just like, I just gave the entire world a key. That would have been bad. So then I can show that. So if I show the git config, since that is my public key, thank God, dude. This happens, man, when you're live and you're like, this. I'm always worried about the .env file on anything, right? Because that's where you kind of keep. So look, so I wanted to show you this. So like you could add that to your to this thing, and I believe when you do the pulls, it will like do fetches or something for you auto-magically. It's kind of cool. But this is sort of what my git config.
I have it also.
Yeah. So that means you shouldn't have to do the git fetch and other things here. I'm not a VI user, so I use nano there, and everything gets signed here. But damn, my stomach hurt for a tiny bit there, right there. Yeah, it was bad. Okay, so if I go back to this then, so it does stay locally now. I don't need it, right? So I can just get rid of it. Kevin's stomach now, is in a tremendous amount of pain because I just got rid of it. But dude, it's already been merged in our code here, right? So Now I'm in the main branch right here. So it really doesn't matter, right? It's all there. So you do you, boo. But I feel pretty good here. So this is our new project structure. Now, for anybody that had a version of this that now pulls it down, you may have a ZARF folder. You try it, Kevin. Go switch to main and switch to main and well, now if you look at your project, do you
Why is this messed up? Okay. Zarf.
yeah.
Cat,
But if you
client.
go under API, you probably have a ZARF folder there, right? No. But you have a yeah, you see that ID yeah. Routes, let me see. Yeah, this is I was curious actually. So when you navigate here,
BUI, I have UI,
yeah.
main.go, static, routes.
But something's okay, so that's yellow because you have the damn plugin enabled, and I could not for the life of me watch. I could not for the life of me get the linter. Look, I enabled it, right?
Oh, okay. You had that.
It's just
extension.
this weird thing they're doing. I was gonna look at the plugin code, but you see how they created this relationship here?
Mm-hmm.
If I disable it,
Oh,
it goes
okay.
away. So
Yeah.
when it's like this without the plugin, they add this linter directive. This is the problem, this SA 4006, because of there's a context being used here, right?
Gotcha.
But
okay.
even like static check in my integration is ignoring it. But if I don't open up the file, then go please is sort of ignoring it, right? Dude, I tried everything under the sun to get that to go away because that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And I couldn't. So I just disabled the plugin because I ain't using it anyway, right? But that's why you saw that.
Gotcha.
But the bottom line here is that you're under ZARF, you should have your CAP ID, your client, database messages.
See, now I don't have data.
Your keys. And so this is what Delaney did when you run the BUI. He ran a local version of NATS.
Oh, okay.
So that's sort of where that went here. I'm not, so don't even worry about that. This is the stuff that we care about.
Got it.
And we're going to have a conversation about NATS today too. So if all that is there already, right? You have your client and you have your CAP folder there. Yeah.
CAP.
Yeah. So then you're good. I think we had it there anyway. And then somebody noticed on the last stream that when Delaney was running his stuff, he was creating these files somewhere else.
Yeah, it was.
Which he was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because the way he was running it, that task thing was a nightmare.
Okay.
And he was running it locally, right? So one thing I did also was I wanted to do the reload. So I found a way to use this program called ENTR. I don't know what ENTR stands for, but let's see if I can do ENTR help. Yeah, I don't know what it, but instead of using any special programs, right? Well, I guess it's a special program, but it could be like with your operating system.
Yep.
Anyway, this program here can restart a command when files change. So the idea was you could send it a list of files to watch, and then if any of those changes, it just did a rebuild, which was really cool, right?
Yeah.
And so, and now everything's at the root. What I tried to tell Delaney was you need to work at the root of the project. He kept wanting to work at the root of the UI.
Yes.
You can't do that. You have to sort of work here. And essentially all he needed from the task when I looked at it was these things. He needed to be able to call temple generate, and then he needed to be able to sort of run. So in a reload mode, that's just, hey, that file changes, regenerate, which would automatically trigger this. For you, Kevin, like if you're not using, Node has the feature functionality for this already, right?
Yep.
But if you're not in a Node situation, like on the Ardan website, right?
Yep.
You want it, like that's the commands you want. So now you can use this, feed it the list of files to look at, and then it will automatically sort of restart.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, and so this is as good as, there's a ton of things people have built for this. I just want to just try to stay neutral to the OS if I could. And I
Gotcha.
found this little program. So all that task stuff was really unnecessary. We just did it all in the make file here, right? But you see that now. Okay, so now what this does is, since we work off the root, even the data star UI can now work with this zarf folder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
That's why you want to work off the root. You want to make sure that you never have to dig into the project. The only time I ever have to dig in the project is if I want to run a unit test.
Got it.
Specifically, because to add all that to the make file is a little, but you don't have to do that all the time, but you have to run this all the time.
Yes.
So, okay. So we've got the new project structure now. And you can see here, this gives us the ability to install that temple so we can do the generate. I was thinking about doing this with Go generate, but you still have to run Go generate separately from Go build. And so at that point, like, I don't know. I didn't see the value in that.
Yeah, is it worth it?
I'd never used Go generate before, and I thought Go generate tags would auto magically execute when you did Go build, and that's not the case. You still have to run you have to still do it a manual step. So at that point, I thought, you know what, why not sort of do that? Now, someone's asking about line. Oh, you're right. That's not web anymore, is it?
API services,
BUI. Yeah.
BUI.
Yeah, we're going to fix that. Good catch, Mohammed. Nice. Good catch. And I did it here, which is what I was using when I was testing, but I never sort of did it there. So let's commit at least that change right now. We'll just say thanks. We'll know what this change is, right? All right, I'll push that up. All right, nice. So we've got that there now. So I think this is 10,000 times more cleaner. Plus, with the task, you gotta, well, technically I had to download these two things anyway, but I don't know.
I'm not used to the task because we've been doing all of our projects with a make file.
Yeah.
So like for me, it was really foreign, but
and make files work in every environment, and everybody's more. So I'm always about the common denominator, right? Like we could go crazy, and if it's just all personal projects and you don't have to worry about anybody else, that's fair. But when you have to worry about other people, including people you haven't met yet,
yeah,
right? The less new sort of stuff you have to introduce, the better. And every person that does ops knows this stuff already inside and out, right? Can leverage it at some point. So it's kind of why I like to stay there. Okay, so we now have that. So that's the project structure. This is 10,000 times more cleaner.
I agree.
I'm curious about one thing before I talk about the data star stuff. I added these notes for myself, okay? So move everything out to the root of the project. I've done that, right? Create a data star domain, and then move app and storage to app sort of SDK. Now, I don't know if that makes any sense because under foundation, we have the client and the storage, but maybe it makes sense. I don't know.
Move app and storage to app SDK. What is it?
I don't know what I meant by that other than move app and storage. I don't know what that means beyond maybe here. So that's bad.
Unless
Bill.
Maybe that, yeah.
Leaving yeah, but I think this belongs here because it's storage related to, maybe not. Maybe this is an app layer concern, right? And so maybe this does belong. We'll have that conversation in a bit. But if you notice here, the client, isn't called app anymore. I've called it client.
Client, okay.
And then we've got so if we look at the TUI for a second as an example, right? Let's just stick to this for a second. So how does this change, right? From a TUI perspective. So you can see that we now import the client and we import a storage mechanic.
Okay.
that's been implemented by the client. One could argue that this is a storage mechanic that could be specific to this API layer, but it's reusable, right? And so I think right now it makes sense to leave it where it is, but maybe after this next refactoring, it will make sense to change it. And so this doesn't really change anything. Look at the amount of code we needed now to write a terminal UI. It was really just the T-view stuff, right? With
Yep.
the implementation of whatever the maybe interfaces were that we had to implement. But
Yeah.
right, client.ui,
Which I believe that was causing
which is
the
just this.
confusion. Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's just the UI interface, a run, a write text, and an update,
Mm-hmm.
which is essentially all we've done here. After new, we've got a run, write text, and
Update. Yeah.
right. And so this is all the code we need because foundationally, we're getting everything else. Now, when you go to the data star, which I've called it the BUI, maybe we change this to data star, right?
Yeah,
so we're
for
more
me,
specific.
I don't know why, but BUI has always, for me, just, I think of it like business UI. For some reason, that just,
All right, so
that always comes
so
to
let's
my
do
head.
this for a second. Let's say we call this data star. Okay, well, let's make these changes. So under this case, then this will be data star, right? None of that breaks. The only other thing here is the change we just made for Mohammed. Data star, right? BUI data star, data star, data star. All right, fine, right? And we could look at this from a, this is our data star UI, right?
Yep.
Okay. Now, there's a lot less code here than what you saw. And I think it's because when he first started building this, he was writing out HTML statically to get the structure.
Mm-hmm.
And then once he had it and he integrated it into these templates, he didn't need it anymore. So
Gotcha. Okay.
just to read this code for a minute, you know, even though we're going to have the linter problem. All right. Just to read this code for a minute. That's the only way I'm going to turn the plugin in. So that initial code he wrote was interesting because he's like, I get a visualization of what the HTML looks like.
Yeah.
And then what he did was added this page chat template, which basically draws the entire page completely over and over again. So his current implementation had no real efficiency.
Got it.
Because the browser is so fast and we're running on a fast machine, even though he can redraw or repaint all the HTML, and there wasn't a lot going on there, you didn't see it.
Okay.
Ideally, we wouldn't want to do that. We would want a fragment, right? Ideally, you wouldn't want this to change. Let's say even this is too much, but you just want sort of that to change.
Just the messages.
Right? And then eventually you would just want a component to change. You wouldn't want to repaint everything every time. This version has everything getting repainted all the time.
Gotcha.
And so you could see data on load. He's got some mechanics here to say, let's make a get call and we'll call this endpoint. And then the chat fragment essentially writes all of this HTML into this, but that also calls that, which is right here, right? I'm looking to see where user fragments is called, but let's say that's the next thing I saw. So let's say I just move that up because I like things to be in the order that I see them, right?
Yeah.
So this segment of HTML is this,
Okay.
all right? And then this user fragment, well, it's being used right here in the chat fragment. Right, so that's
okay.
So it was actually
correct.
Should have came first, right? I missed it. So yeah, let's put it back because this has two of them. It has this, and then it has this. But when you look at the code, we're actually, and then there's this icon stuff, right? But when we look at the actual code he wrote, he's essentially bringing this down over and over and over and over and over and over on that.
Okay.
I've got it working at the event level, but over and over and over again. Really inefficient in our case, even though we don't feel it.
Yeah.
And he'll turn around and argue, well, then don't deliver this every time, deliver this every time, because I've integrated that fragment to an ID and my framework code will know where to put that into the page, right?
Yeah.
Totally fair. But you see what he's done here. This is like old Microsoft ASP that I remember, where you intermixed, in that case, C# code with HTML. You're intermixing Go code with HTML.
Gotcha.
Now, let's finish this review and then I'll give you my sort of 2 cents on this. So on the UI side, and we're gonna fix this to use our framework. Okay, we'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
So on the UI side, he has to implement the interface, which he did. He's got run.
Yep.
He's got write text.
Write text.
Okay.
And update.
And update content.
Yep.
So he's got the API implemented, which means that this main is identical to the other main. It should have its own main. It's okay to copy and paste this code. This is startup.
Yeah.
Right? But the only thing that changes is we're constructing this. So I didn't want to put this in the same binary, 2 different binaries. So you want to run 2 different UIs, you got 2 different binaries that you can run.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
And they run in their own sort of process. Everything else is the same. If you looked at this main versus not the cat main, but the TUI main, it's all going to be the same, dude. The only change is what we're doing here, which is fair.
Mm-hmm.
And from a production perspective, code, I'd leave it like this.
Just separated.
Every service gets its own main.go, and even if it's 90% the same, I don't care, because if one little thing has to change on startup, it's for that service and that service only. I don't affect anything else. This is where dry doesn't work sometimes. So if we come back in here, this is what you've got. Now, let's take a look at the UI code, right, and understand what he's doing here. So what he has done is he's embedded the, right, basically just the CSS. That's all he's needed. There's nothing else here because the entire page is basically built in these fragments.
Gotcha.
Right? It's hard-coded eventually in the Go code when we generate all this stuff. The only thing we have under static is the CSS.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that one day you couldn't have images in there, or you couldn't have maybe some base HTML that you then somehow incorporate into here because this is Go code. But that's all we really have. And then he used this hashfs function. I looked it up. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It would help you identify sort of something changed or not.
And what is it that it does?
So if we look at it, why Ben Johnson sort of created it. And I don't use this for any of the projects that we're doing this sort of embedding here. But it appends SHA to its hash to the file names to allow for aggressive caching. So essentially what it's going to do is if there's static HTML, right?
Yeah.
Or there are things that don't change. Well, you don't want the web server to re-execute and regenerate those. You don't want to use those CPU cycles to produce something that didn't change.
Yeah.
What you'd like to do is cache that for a certain amount of time. Now, like Nginx, Caddy, these types of systems, they know how to do that already based on your sort of cache control header. And so what he's done here, he's like, for an example, like your main.js, right? The hashfs system will provide this name. So now it's got a unique name that it can cache. Now on the next build, if you changed this, the caching system wouldn't know because the name of the asset hasn't changed. So it will think that the version 1 of main.js is still good. What I used to do old school is I would go into the HTML. This is Bill, okay? What Bill would do back in the day when I was publishing something. Like, let's say that I own this, right? I would do this. And then I would know that when I publish something new to do this. And what that would do is invalidate the browser's cache at that point and go, oh, I've never seen this file. Let me go pull it.
Got
and
it.
if I
Okay.
hadn't done that, then I may have made JavaScript changes, but the user wouldn't get it because the browser wouldn't go fetch a new one.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, because that cache is going to be there for some time. So what Ben Johnson did is he said, you know what I'm going to do? What I'm going to do is change the right. I'm going to create a however he did it is magical, right? But by doing this, he's now given this file a unique name. And anytime we rebuild the product,
Yep.
they all get another unique name.
Got it. Okay.
And now you're guaranteed that when the browser loads this website again,
it's going to get the newest.
It's not going to cache anything. So the key though is you got to use the hashfs file server to make sure that when you say main.js, it knows that it's main dash right? For whatever algorithm it's using. But my guess is this hash is also based on the file. So if the file doesn't change, then that hash, the name of the file won't change. It would only change
if you make changes to
the file.
Got it.
So it's efficient that way too, right?
Yeah.
Ideally, for Ardan, we really should be using this when we publish the new Connect 4, we publish the new thing.
Yeah.
Because if we do make changes to the JavaScript, they won't necessarily get it unless you do the shift. So I think this is something we should consider putting into, at some point, rolling it into all our stuff. But you understand now what's happening.
Yeah.
It's very friendly with the browser cache. So we don't have to do the dumb stuff that I was doing back in the day, man. It's funny. Okay.
Cool. Okay.
So look at what he does here on new, right? Forget about we could talk about why he brought in Nats, but if you see here, we've got the web UI. He does the load contacts.
Yep.
Right. And then that's just basically storing the contacts in this map, right?
Yep.
Okay. And then on run, he created a chai router and he built all these sort of endpoints. I want to move these endpoints out of using the chai router, and I want it to use our little web framework. And that's where, if we have a Datastar app domain, we'll have the routes and we'll have the handlers.
Got it. Okay.
So we're going to do that just so you can see this. That way, the project has one mux, and that's the mux that we use. We can clean up this code too. All right. So we don't have this. We'll use our stuff. Everything else could basically stay the same here. And so to sort of draw what he did, let me open up the Excalidraw for a second. So we can sort of talk about what Datastar is actually doing. And then maybe I'll give you my opinions, and then we'll keep it, but we'll make it more project oriented. So you've got some browser, right, that wants to render a browser. Did I spell it right? Browser that is going to talk to some service here, right? This is our service that let's call it a web service. Okay. And the job of the web service is to handle. That's weird. The job of the web service is to handle request response, right? We keep it super simple. How come when I did that, that's weird, man. Oh, when I created this browser, I don't know, whatever. Let's just put it back. I have time for that. Okay, so the idea is simple, right? You have a request, and it on the same sort of connection there, right? Same connection, you get a response. Not a separate connection. It's the same connection.
Yep.
But that's sort of the idea. I wish this tool would let me draw arrows on sort of both sides of this, but it doesn't ever. So, but I'm trying to relate that this is there. We'll tie it together like this, right? So
Mhm.
it's touching. So on the same sort of socket connection, you have a request in your response, and it's supposed to be fast and life is good.
Yep.
Now, what Delaney thought, or what Datastar is trying to say, sort of is the following. All right, I get there's a request response. And look, back in the day, we were able to do all the things that Datastar does, but with Ajax. So we could have a little JavaScript that said, hey, web service, here's a request, bring me back the data I need. And then we could render that inside of a div.
Gotcha.
Okay. So Datastar isn't doing anything unique that we couldn't do with, say, single page apps, which is what this is. A single page app is essentially we bring down that initial HTML and then everything's sort of dynamic inside of it through an Ajax call.
Got it.
So this would respond with some data. That data would be rendered into HTML, or the web service could also provide the HTML and you would just sort of plug it in. So we could do that with this sort of Ajax sort of mechanic. Still, we do this right now. The Connect 4 game.
Yep.
It's not HTML that's coming back. He wants to bring back HTML. We just bring back data and we do it there. But you could do either or, even in this environment. The first project I ever built with browsers in 2004 was this. Okay, so not new. Okay,
got it.
With again, we call them single page sort of apps here, right? Okay. So he felt that I'm going to guess what he felt was that the establishment of this socket connection takes time. And it does. Now, one of the cool things that Go does, if you're using Go's client, it's part of the net package, net/HP package, is, and a lot of people don't know this and they make mistakes with it. But when you're working in Go and you construct a client, okay, an HTTP client. Okay. That HTTP client has within the scope of it an HTTP transport object. Now the transport is what maintains a connection pool of connections to a server. And it does that by looking at what domains you're talking to. So you could tell the transport, and you can configure this at the client level, but you could tell the transport, always keep 2 hot connections, say, to the server. Now, this works great when you isolate a client and a transport to a single domain.
Okay.
But what if you're using the same client and transport for this domain, for this domain, for this domain, for this domain? Now you only ever have 2 hot socket connections here. Your next request wants to go here. What happens? You got to spend time establishing that socket connection to send the request. So one of the things as a Go developer you want to do is identify what domain, like ardanlabs.com, api.ardanlabs.com. You know you're going to be making calls to api.ardanlabs.com. You know you're going to be making calls to api.constructor. You know you're going to be making calls to xyz.com. What you want is a separate client transport for each of those domains. So this one can keep hot connections to that.
That one goes
This
there.
one can keep hot connections to this. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That way you always have the performance of the next. You may want to increase this depending on how many. And it's not going to like terminate a connection right away. You're just saying how many do you want to keep idle in a sense. So the big mistake people make in Go is they either use the default client or they're using the same client transport
for
to
a
hit
lot of different
domains, and you're not getting the caching performance out of it.
And it's better to just create multiple clients also for
So
each.
if you look in Prediction Guard, where I have to be talking to 10 different models, and each one of the instances of the APIs that talk to a model, since they all have a different sort of domain to that model, have their own client transport.
Got it. Okay.
Just so I can keep the hot connections, and we're not competing for that.
Gotcha.
Okay, you got that. So So ideally, then what I'm maybe I'll move this here, but so what I'm trying to say now is he wanted the same performance. He doesn't want to worry about the caching element. Now, if he knew about HTTP client and configured it properly,
Yeah.
I would argue that he could. Well, then again, this is in the Go side, right? And he's making calls on the Java side. So he's not going to get the benefit there, right? Because he's establishing socket connections
Yeah.
from the Java side. And I don't know if the root Java support for, say, Ajax and this stuff maintains hot connections. Let's say it did. Then you'd want to leverage that.
Gotcha.
Right? If it's across all browsers. Now, let's say that doesn't exist. But you don't want to spend time on the connection because that also requires CPU cycles to do all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So what he did is the following. He said, let me establish a socket connection to the web service. Okay? But I'm going to keep it open. I'm not going to let it shut down. Okay. And he's not letting it shut down on this side. He can't control that on this side. So he sends a request. Okay? I know the arrow looks backwards, but he's going to send a request this way, right? He sends a request. And what he basically does is he has the handler here, the handler that is going to be used for this request to keep this request open. He doesn't close it.
Got it.
Okay?
So it's essentially doing something similar to HTTP client. Like it's keeping it a hot.
Not really, because this is at like a transport layer. This is beyond our app layer.
Okay.
It's not really like that. Other than this is, say, just think of this as transport layer, lower level.
Okay.
Okay, that's like layer 4 or 5 in the network stack, right? We're at layer 7 here.
Gotcha.
So what he does, he says he has this browser create a request, and the browser then holds the connection tight because this handler won't let it drop. Okay.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now, what he's done is he's created a one-way sort of channel to push data. Back to the browser. So he's now going to be able to push data back to the browser anytime he wants. There's no more request. It's only response.
Gotcha.
Okay? So think about this as an open-ended, basically, response. Okay? And he then also decides that he's going to use an existing protocol that exists today called SSE, which is what all of the model servers and OpenAI is using. Mm-hmm. And the SSE is just a protocol where there's a header that says data and then some data. Right? Whatever you want. Sometimes it's JSON, sometimes it's whatever you want. That's the idea. And there's a type that goes with it, so you know, like, you've got it all or you don't. And in most scenarios, like with a model server or like OpenAI, you establish the request, then you know on this side he's going to talk SSE, so you wait, you get the SSE back, and then it says done and drops it. But on this case, even though he's going to say, let's say he says done, he doesn't drop it.
Yeah, it stays open.
He stays open. And so he's going to be constantly doing this, okay? And then something else happens and he does that. And he keeps it open. And it's interesting, right? And it's fast because you're not breaking this down. Now, he detects when this finally times out, and then he reestablishes it. Now, if you wanted to push something at that moment, there'd be a tiny bit of latency. But let's say that you get lucky, and that never, ever happens, right?
Yeah.
So this is why he needs essentially some sort of buffer mechanic here, because if this ever goes down, right, he can't just throw that away. He's got to
Yeah.
wait for this to get reestablished in order to send whatever the data
Gotcha.
is,
Okay.
right? So he'll
Okay.
pull from the, hey, is there anything in the buffer? Yeah, send it down. Anything in the buffer? Yeah, send it down.
Got it.
Okay. So, but there's a problem even with this. Okay, let me move this down. Does OpenAI actually use SSE? OpenAI uses SSE. Any compatible OpenAI server uses SSE, because there's, if you ever look at a chat system where you chat and the words are coming in a little bit at a time to make it feel, that's SSE. Okay, that's SSE. This is not WebSocket. This is not bidirectional. That's the point. If it was WebSocket like we're doing, then it's bidirectional. You establish a socket connection, it stays open, and both sides can send data back and forth.
Okay.
Right? Delaney, for some reason, hates WebSockets. I really don't know why. Right? Because you get the same thing you want here, but it's sort of bi-directional. You still have to maintain a socket connection. You're not getting away from that. But for whatever reason, he doesn't like it. He may not like it because you got to implement the pinging, and maybe there's extra traffic around the ping to know, but maybe that's why. But now Delaney has a problem. He's created essentially what he's created is just sorry about that. What he's sort of created is just a one-way channel, right? He can only send data back.
Yep.
But there are going to be moments in his life where he's got to ask for things. Okay. He's got to ask for things. So how does he do that? Well, he's got to make a traditional request to another handler. Okay. So he's going to have to make a request to do this. Now, I tried to have this conversation with him the last time he was on. I don't know if you were aware of it, but I said to him, okay, if you're making this request to this handler because something needs to be updated, why not send that response back and do it here? Because what he's doing is not this.
Okay.
There is a response, but the response, we'll look at it, is probably a 204.
Okay.
So what he's doing now is this handler, let's just say, sends that, let's say, to this buffer or some sort of queue. Could be a buffer. We're going to look at it, or a queue. And so the response doesn't come back on this request. It comes back on this.
Okay, so it goes down that same stream.
Because he's got a bunch of data star. He's got a bunch of data star code here. I want to get rid of this browser word, but he's got a bunch of data star code here. Whatever. Like here it got attached and here it didn't. I don't understand. But he's got a bunch of data star code here that understands what HTML has to go where.
Got it.
Based on the IDs and stuff. Okay. So this is what he's doing. He establishes this request. It maintains it's open. The protocol is SSE, right? I've already shown you now what sort of SSE looks like.
Yeah.
In a general sense. Then he'll execute a request that doesn't really send a response, that does something here that pushes the response back down this channel, and then he updates it.
Got it. Okay.
And he says this is ridiculously fast because you're not holding this connection open very long.
No.
You're just getting the input, right? You're just getting the input across. So this is whatever that input is related to what you need. And since this is already established, you just get it instantly.
Yeah, it's instant.
It's about how fast you can go from here to here.
Yeah.
But you get it instantly, and you did it without let's say that I agree with them that WebSockets are heavy without the heaviness of sort of the WebSocket.
Yeah.
Okay. This
Makes
is what
sense.
Datastar's done. Now, he's built a tremendous amount of infrastructure here to tie back this HTML into where it needs to be loaded on the page. In our particular case, though, we're just reloading the entire page over and over again. We'll see that in the code. So I want you to look for these things, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be some handler here that's implementing this piece. And then there are going to be handlers here that are going to be doing this. And you have to remember that there could be thousands of tabs open up here.
Yeah.
So we could technically, each tab will have maybe one of these. And so if you have the same app loaded twice in 2 tabs, which is possible,
Yeah.
it's still talking to the same web service. We have to account for that. Somebody was asking, Bill, why are we using a channel? Why? Because you can't assume
that it's going to be a
that
single...
we just have one of these. You have to assume that we've got thousands of these for different tabs that need the same data, so the app is updated regardless if you're on this tab or that tab. So you might have this tab open with Kevin, this tab open with Mohammed. You'd want the Kevin one to show the message. On the Mohammed one, you'd want the star on Kevin's name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I see.
Okay.
I see the... Yeah.
So you can't maintain this concept of some local state here, right? Which adds some complexity on this side. But this is what he's done, like semantically and impressively, right? Because when you're gonna see here that all we have to do is import this datastar.js, and we get all of this, whatever this is doing.
So essentially, the speed of it is coming from this request being opened in the, or this the push data,
this request being
opened, and then on the bottom request not doing the response through there, just sending it straight through and back through the
but by doing this, right, not doing the response here, but by doing the response here, now that I think about it, he's able to update multiple tabs at the same time.
Because they're all just to the same...
Well, remember, they all have a separate... This would all be a separate socket connection.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. But remember, there may be just one tab doing this that does affect all of this.
All the other ones.
So actually, that's really brilliant, because we wouldn't have the scenario that I said where the star just opened up on the other one unless we were using WebSockets, because the server would have to send to all open.
Yeah, so they would all be on the same page, essentially.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, so in order to support that, you need this mechanic. You can't do it with request or response, because this would just be for the app on the one tab, not for all the tabs. Now that I think about it, and he had in his head the idea that, and he said it a couple times, but there could be thousands of these tabs open.
Yeah.
Which we never think about. When we're building apps, I only think that you're going to run the app
in
one tab. And if you log in a second one, that's separate state. That's separate. And Delaney says, no, there's no reason why that has to be separate. I want that state to be everywhere that it needs to be. And I don't want the heaviness of the WebSocket and the pinging and all that. So he came up with this mechanic, which is really kind of brilliant, because I never would have done this. I would have kept it simple and said, why are you logging into multiple instances? Now, if we're dealing with maybe a login and stateful stuff, that's fine. But how many apps are out there doing telemetry and graphs and stuff, and you have it open, and you would want,
you have a bunch of
you would need
screens.
this. It's like, for certain things you would need this.
And now, is that all these handlers, are they on their own queue also, or buffer?
No.
Or they're on the same...
They're all on their own Go routine.
Okay.
But we've got to find a way to make sure that they're getting to, so let's take a look at what he's done now, right?
Okay.
With these, maybe I'm off a little bit, but this is what I'm
Yeah.
sort of seeing here, right?
Which it would make sense.
Okay, so now if we come back to what's here, I'm going to do the following, right? I'm going to add a new domain called Datastar app. And I'm going to add the two files, datastarapp.go, and then we'll have the route.go. All right. And I'll just steal this anyway. And what I want to do is move the handlers that he has into our own and services for the Datastar domain, really. And then I want to move those handlers a little bit at a time. And before we even really try to sort of bind them up.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. So if we use this as an example, like I know I'm going to need this right away. All right. I don't have a business-y thing we probably don't need, so I'll just get rid of that right now. And we'll take the logger just to have the logger. Okay, so we're going to have this. Now, if you look at chat app, we've got handlers here, right?
Yep.
What if I just steal this for a second? And a handler essentially takes a context that has a request. It returns an encoder, but we can also have a raw handler if we need it, which will give us the response writer and let us sort of control things. But let's stay here because I can still get the writer if I need it, which we'll need it for the SSA piece by using the web package. There's a get writer,
yep,
which is in the context, and this would give me sort of the writer, the response writer back when we need it. All right.
Got it. Okay.
All right, but let's go now here for a second. Okay. So he created this, right? And then what he did is he created a static star. We don't have to worry about that. There's another way that we can do that with our web stuff. We'll do that in main. You know that already because we sort of do that. And then what he has is the root here, which calls this page chat. And page chat is literally sending down the HTML, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, one problem we have here is that he's essentially calling this UI stuff down here, right? So if I want to move the handlers down here, I'm going to need this stuff sort of down here as well.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So what I'm going to do then for now, and we'll figure out if we want to move it again later, is I'm going to put UI down here. Okay. So this is going to be our UI package. Now, look, I can do the following here. Let's just say I took this code for a second. This is for the index route, right? So let's say I call this index for now. So this is actually a function that got built here in a package called UI. That's fine. And we're going to need this package here. Let's play with this for a second. So UI page chat. Now, it takes a UI web UI. Let's go back here for a second. The UI web UI had this. So for some reason, he wanted a web UI. Now the question is why? Because chat fragment needed it because users fragment needed it because he needed the usernames and stuff here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So, okay. So that's fine. We'll have to clean all that up. But let's assume at this point that we've got this somehow.
Okay.
Just because I don't know how we're getting it just yet, but that's fine. We can assume that we're going to have it. All right. We ain't trying to run this code anytime soon, but we're going to have to come back to that. So assuming I have this data structure, whatever it is.
Yep.
Okay. And then he needed the current messages, which was unexported, right? So where was that located? Let's go back here. So that was there, right?
Okay.
I'm just going to make it exported for now as we sort of go through this refactoring.
Got it.
So I also didn't like all that stuff he did with the, I wouldn't be doing that. Okay, now this needs to be a.ui. So I'm going to call this web because if I don't, I'm going to get confused with the UI package itself, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now it needs to call render and it needs the response writer. So I already showed you how we can do that. Web.get writer context, and we have that. Now, if we look at his thing for a second, this is doing the rendering and sending it all the way down at that point. So what we need to tell our framework is there's no response for you. Like the response has already happened here.
It's already rendered it. It's already...
So we can call this, say, render page. All right. So that's the render page thing. Again, the web UI is off a little bit for me, but we'll figure that out. There's a good chance we can construct that. Most likely we will want to construct that here, right? So, which tells me what we really need is this. So look, if we come back here for a minute and I ask for that here, then what I can do here is say UI.new. It needs a context, whatever right now, context background. And at that point, I would ask for a context here, right? I have to guess. I need it. I need it. I don't like when factory functions get this complicated, but now that just returned a web UI, right?
Yep.
Okay. So, and the web UI was this.
Web UI and here.
So what we can do then really is say web UI. Keep this web UI. That doesn't return an error, does it? We could do the new. Oh, it does return an error. Okay. It does return an error. So we have the web UI and an error. This now has to return an error, which is fine. And if there's an error not equals to nil, we can do the return from.errorf, creating web UI is fine. And now I've got web UI, sort of web UI, right? Now, it doesn't want to bring in that because I'm sure there's something else bad that I've done here and it's not able to do that. But let's clean this up for a second. So this would be web UI, right? This now is an app, or we'll just say A. which will return the address of A and nil at that point. And then this has to be nil.
Yep.
Okay, you still don't like common. It doesn't understand common. That's fine. We'll just come here. We'll steal it.
Yep.
It doesn't want to behave. And so now what we've done is we've said, fine, we know we have enough to construct a web API. We just need these two things. We now have a clean one for what it's worth. Okay. I think some of this will move out anyway.
Gotcha.
And then we've got the concept of a sort of render page where we just need the response writer for that. We're not using it yet, so that's fine. Okay. Now, if I come back here, that sort of handles this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's now I have a feeling that this might be the SSE that's holding it. It might be. I'm going to look for it. Okay. But there's a good chance, I think.
Like that's what's staying open.
Yeah. And you can see here that this is generating the page over and over again. So there's a chance. I don't know enough just yet. But it's a chance that this is doing that piece. Okay. Fortunately, there's an interface, so we hit the wall there. But that's fine, right? We'll just keep this the way it is from what I see. So we've got that. Now, here you've got a bunch of handlers now, right?
Yeah.
Where you can see here it's returning given this handler, this is what we're going to write. Now, if you notice though, this is the Nats publish.
Mm-hmm.
So in the Nats publish, we're going to see where that sort of goes. There's a send message. So that's when we hit the send button, right? Chat up. No, this is the SSE right here. Chat updates. So what we just wrote is the initial rendering of the page.
Okay.
Right? Initial rendering of the page. And then this is going to be the SSE channel that he called chat updates that sits in this endless loop, doesn't let the connection drop. And anytime data comes in over the channel, right, this SSE merge template with chat fragment. So really, this is what he's doing. Then every time it updates, he's not doing page chat, he's doing this.
Chat fragment.
Right. So it's the entire page without the header and the body.
Yeah.
Right. That's what he's doing, which again, for our purposes, it's going to work, but we probably would want to get that a little bit more efficient, micro, if you can. But you can see here that anytime an event comes in, and we don't even care about the state of the event, we do this. In our case, we know that messages changed. So he gets that list of messages, and then he re-renders that HTML every time. Right?
Got it.
So this right here, this chat updates, is what's happening here.
That middle, yeah.
It's what's happening here. And he's already given you support for that. You don't have to implement your own SSE sort of stuff. Okay. Now, we're not going to have the listen and serve here, but because that's outside this. So we're going to get all this to work with our web framework. None of this is, but I wanted you to see that. So the only request, he's got two requests that come in. The change user, because they selected something. When
you select, yep.
Right, which changes the state of the UI, which then somehow when this gets published, the other side will do its thing. And then he's got the send message, right, which data star reads signals or whatever this is doing and sends this message. Send message handler. Oh, which is what we need for the other side, right?
That's our side.
And then you can see here that this channel is actually part of Nats. So anytime we send anything over NATs, it's a way of triggering this
Got it.
to
Okay.
sort of do its thing. And since we already know that NATs supports a single sender and multiple receives,
Mm-hmm. Got
right?
it.
It's not a
Okay.
one-to-one. It's a one signal to many. That way, if this handler, this queue is really NATs, right? And so all these handlers are subscribed to NATs. And so a single signal can be delivered to
Many. Okay.
to
Yeah.
many of these handlers here. And if you look at this code a little bit more, he's subscribing to a channel that my guess which is what you saw on disk,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
you see how he's using NATs, because you can't use Go channels for this, because Go channels is a one-to-one.
Got it. It's
What
not.
would
It's
ha-
not a one-to-many.
It's not a one-to-many.
Okay.
So what would have
Yeah.
to happen if you were using Go channels is that when you established this, you'd have to establish the channel, and you'd have to maintain a list of those channels for the number of instances that you have this handler running, for the number of socket connections. And then you couldn't just, in this case, publish one. You'd have to publish for every socket connection that you have. You see how complicated that gets?
Yeah.
So Delaney said, I don't like complexity. I can run a local NATs and do a single publish where
Yeah, and it'll do it. It'll
where
handle that.
anybody that is subscribed to it will get it.
Got it. Okay.
Right?
I understand it now.
Because if
Yeah.
you have to hand code that, we could, but like this has already been coded to sort of do that.
It's already a problem that's been solved.
Yeah, right. And the fact that you can run this locally with that local disk, okay, is pretty cool. So the server has a client connection to NATs, but and therefore the server can publish, but every socket connection from a browser tab executes in the scope of this. This stays connected, and it can just individually subscribe, and therefore it individually receives. And now
Okay.
every tab gets triggered to. It's interesting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that's sort of what he's done. So you're looking at an update, which basically, right, it publishes to NATs, and these are already subscribers, and so they'll receive what was published.
Got it. Okay. So that makes sense now, because I was a little bit lost on how like the NATs was being used there, but that makes sense.
Because I told him, why don't we just use a channel? He's like, dude, there could be thousands of these.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? You're going to manage a channel for every one of these? We
Yeah.
could, but what happens when they start dropping and you didn't drop the channel, and then you've got, because I don't need that. I got a local version of NATs running here. It doesn't cost me anything.
Perfect.
Interesting,
Yeah.
right? It's not the global NATs that we're using. It's just a local, which is why you saw, that's why you saw this under my Zarf,
The data, yeah.
because this was essentially running that. So it's cool, right? I get what
Very
he was
cool.
doing, right? My question would be, if this would work, though, request, send back the HTML, that would be great. But again, it wouldn't work when you have multiple tabs running the same app, all needing the same update at the same time. Then this traditional AJAX doesn't work,
No.
does it?
Mm-hmm.
No.
That's when you would
Right. Well, again,
use that.
but then at that point, every one of those could have the WebSocket connection to get the event. So what I would do in the past is maybe have the WebSocket, but I wouldn't bring data down. I would give it a command. Hey, this just changed. And then I would let the app make the call to get the data. right? That was like a mechanism that I used to use, where I'm using the WebSocket connection as a signaling semantic to just say, hey, this interesting thing just happened. Maybe you care about it. Hey, this interesting thing just happened. Maybe you care about it. And then it would do this to get the data and do the update, right? That's another sort of mechanic to do it with. But with what he did, he was able to build some Go support here and some Java support here, JavaScript support here.
Yeah.
So you don't have to think about it. And then he integrated the Temple to be able to write code like this. It gets super interesting, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So all we've done right now is we've got the render page sort of done, right? The static stuff we're going to take care another way. So now he's got this chat change user thing, right? So let's do this. So this is change user, right? I can even steal all the code that he has in here. Hold on. This is change user. We're going to fix this code still. Let's see here. So we don't need this. I need web dot. There's a param in this web package. Param.
Yep.
Given a request and key. It's the same sort of thing, right? None of that changes. Now I need the request. Fine. If that's not the case, now in our web framework, what we do is we'll return an errors.new, maybe a new app error, right? So we can determine which the code is. So
got it.
What we'll say is, I don't want not found. I want, I always forget these. Like a failed precondition, really, is what that is, right? Invalid argument, let's say. And then we can just put this here. Right? An invalid argument should send a 404. And I need to put that in quotes.
Yep.
Okay. So you see how it's translating to what we do to what he does. Now, he had this concept of zero user that he was checking. I don't see where he defined it. I should be able to do that, but it's not letting me do that, right? So I thought Common had a...
it wasn't, no, that one wasn't nil.
I thought it might have had one already. I don't see it either. I think we looked for this the other time as well, right? So, I mean, it's not a big deal. We could just do this for now. I was just wondering where he declared that because, oh, it was right there. So, you know what? For now, I'll just put this here for now, okay?
So he just initialized it on a,
yeah,
or he put it out to a 0 value. Okay, that way.
I'm wondering if there's a method too that would give it to us, you know. So this would be something fun to look up, like people that are using this and need to know if it's 0, you know, how are they doing it? And, you know, maybe you're doing it like that, right? So compare two addresses, and my guess is if it equals 0. So that's one way to do it, right? Like there's a compare function. I don't know if this is the most efficient way to do it, but compare returns 0 if they're equal, right? So you're comparing bytes, but that's what we would be doing anyway. So that's probably the best way to do it, right? Just compare it with address 0. And then here we can say, you know, I would just say invalid user hex.
Okay.
Right? Now, a.web UI, trying to keep this code the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
Web
yep.
UI. web UI. Now, these are unexported at this point. So we're going to have to fix all of this, right? Yeah. I'm just doing this right now just to hack, to get everything to compile. But we're going to have to, this is going to have to be better, all right? Just going to call it NC. All right. So we're not going to leave it like this, everybody.
Got it. Okay.
Now, the web subject was right here, right?
Update. Okay.
We can just do that. Now, since we're publishing, and this is the change user, okay, my guess is I don't know what this router does. Like, he's not doing a response, right? So my guess is this is more of a 204. So if I do a return, I want to send I don't know what he's sending. Let's assume he's sending a 204 back. Okay. So that's not a web no response. I don't know if he's doing a no response here. I don't know what the chai thing does. But if I want to send, okay, I remember. If I want to just send a 204, my web framework just says return nil.
Okay.
And I'll interpret that as a sort of a 204. Now you can see we're not using context here, so we'll just do that. So that's change user, right? Yeah. Render page, all his same user. Code. We've had to hack web UI a little bit, whatever. Now it's send message. Okay. We have to write the routes. We could already start writing the routes too, right? So essentially, just take this code here for a second. Here's our routes. We don't need this as far as I know. Don't need this. I do need this though, my account, don't I? Let's go back to this.
Yeah.
We need this. So let's ask for this at the route level. Logger, give me this. And we got to pass that in. No, new app needs a context too, doesn't it? Which is a bummer. So why does it need a context again? Because of this new. So yeah. I'm going to do the following right now. I don't know what I want to do here. Just feels bad. So I'm going to do this.
And what is it that the to-do does again?
It just tells us that we know we need a context, but we're not sure what this should be yet. So instead of just putting background, we'll just do a to-do, and that will force us to sort of come back. But I think it needs the context because of this Nats thing.
Gotcha.
And so I think, right, what I would rather do is just say context.with with timeout. The parent context can be a background. And then the idea is that you've got 3 seconds to sort of connect here, right? So if I do that, I don't need this. Now I'm hard coding 3 seconds, but dude, I mean, if that doesn't connect in 3 seconds, we got bigger problems, right? Yeah, well, that's because of this for now.
Gotcha, okay.
And then now I don't need this at all, right? Now if I come back to wherever we were using that call to new app here, was that this would come up here somewhere. So, but that's fine, right? This is our stuff here. Something else is gonna go bad, but so there's a potential error. Now I hate the fact that there's an error coming out of this, right? Because the way I've written routes before, like there shouldn't be an error coming out of the sort of construction of the new app.
Okay.
This is all really sort of bad stuff. So what I might do for this, I got a couple choices. I can return the error. Right now I have no place. This isn't really designed to return errors and deal with that. So I don't know what to do here yet. So I'm going to do this, but we're going to have to come back to this and determine, or I just do this right now and figure out where we sort of put that. And just do that for a minute. Now, if I come back to the handler here, right, there were two of them that we were already dealing with. We had this, which is our slash. So that's a get. There's no version. It's just this. And that is API render page. Okay.
Got it. Okay.
And then the next one that we saw was, here, is this.
Yep, the change user. Yep.
Now, this is a post, right? So we come to this. This will be method post. It's going to look like that. And this is going to be API change user. See, same.
Yeah.
Same thing. I don't remember off the top of my head. Let's look at service for a second, just to make sure that, yeah, it's curly brackets.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So we've got those two, right? Got those two now. And it's the same code, just using our own little sort of web framework for that. Now, the next one
is
send message, right? Okay. So come in here. This is going to be send, what time is it? Send message 12:30. And send message, what does send message have to do? Let's just steal the code.
Store message, yep.
So send message, what it does is this. Now, you see what he did here? He wanted a 0 value of this.
Yes.
So what we could do is this instead. And use var. There's no reason to have a name for this.
Okay.
We could just create a literal struct with this structure, give it a variable name.
And
that's all he needed.
That's going to give us the 0 value of a
and it's going to give us the 0 value. Now he's using his data star SDK. So we're going to bring that in. He's also aliased it, which is fine.
Okay, yeah, I wanted to ask why that one had.
Because he doesn't want to use SDK as the name. He wants to use data star.
Got it.
So you can alias the namespace at this point. Go will ignore the Go, but it's gonna, I believe it would ignore Go. So that's sort of what he's doing there. The problem with aliasing is you'd have to alias it uniquely in every file. So this is why sometimes you see us name things like data star app, data star biz, data star something. Mm-hmm. So we don't have these names. If you just said data star and you needed it from both layers, now you got to alias.
Got
it's
it.
a pain in the ass.
Got it. Okay.
So we don't really want to do that, right? So in this case, though, what we can do is just a new. Error is new, takes a code, and then takes an error. Now, we also have a new error that would just take the error, and then that would be sort of a 500. But what I'd rather do is the new, and then in this case, I would say internal only log. So what that would mean is send a 500 back to the caller, but don't send them the error message.
Oh, okay.
Right? But log it. Internal only log. If we just said internal, they'd also get the message that sort of went with it. Okay, so then this is a.webui. Now, the web UI had an app. We're going to make this, again, this is all bad. We're going to fix this, right?
Yep.
App. And then a.webui visible user. And the messages. And then this is a send message. It doesn't look like, again, that he probably just passes a 204 because he's not specifying anything. So we could just do a return nil again. Now, he may be expecting a 200. We'll find out fairly quickly. And if it's a 200, we'll just send an arbitrary object.
Okay.
And then that would be a sort of a 200. All right, so there it is. There's your send message. If I come back here, send message has this structure, right? So now we can go into our route. I think I have to put this first. I don't know how
the order matters.
It could matter, so I want to do that. So this will be send message. Yeah. And then we're good. Yeah, I want to put this last, so these would bind first, maybe. So now we got our send message, right? Nice. We've got that code here, nice and clean. Beautiful. Then we've got the last one, which is the update, which is the fun one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so chat updates. Now, chat updates. Chat updates, right? Again, I think this one's going to be a return, probably a web.no response, because it's doing responses for us, right? None of these actually had a response.
Got it. Okay.
And so if I come back here, we do chat updates. Of chat updates. I'm assuming, again, all these were posts, and I didn't really look, but nope. You see, that's a get, right? So this actually is a get, and then that was a post. That was a post. He did this as a get, which is fine. And so we have all the routes now, right? The get, the two posts, and then the final sort of get. We could keep the gets together just to keep that clean. Sometimes I like doing that. Sometimes I don't know if it matters, right? I mean, I don't know. So, okay. So we've got our chat updates now. Let's take this code and we'll pull it in. Now, I know we're going to need the response, right? So we already know how to do that. We know we now need the context to get it. We do that. Now we've got a nats package that we're not, I don't know why this is so broken, but we do that anyway. Now, where's his nats? Here it is. Oh, okay. You see, like it said nats.go, and the compiler needed like ignore the go extension and just use nats by default there. So, so we've got that. We did that. Now this is going to be a.webui, and then we have the subject again. So remember how I put the subject here?
Yep. So it needs to be global.
It needs to be, yeah, we need it in two places. So we'll move it up. Okay. Now, what we can do here is the return errors.newf. Now he wanted to use a 500 here, right? So we can do a errors.internal. And then he already gave us essentially this, right?
Okay.
So we've got that with a 500 attached to it. Okay, so here, when we're done, we're going to be there. Let's see. And then when we receive something on the nats, I left a message here too. It's possible a message came in that's not written to storage. But because he's reading storage every time.
Okay.
Remember, we dumped it to storage, and then he comes in and he's always reading. It's very inefficient what we've sort of done here.
Got it. Okay.
This would require much more work if we wanted to like really sort of go with it. Okay, the chat fragment. That's going to be UI dot. Yeah. And then this is going to be a dot web UI. Yeah. So
okay.
You see here now we've implemented all of the routes like he has, right?
Yep.
That's super interesting, right?
And using our web, like our web.
Yeah, using our web framework.
Framework. Right? Yeah.
So we just got to do the one thing that we haven't done yet on the main side, which is the like the static server stuff. So what we're going to have to do is sort of this. This is our rendering engine down here, but this is going to be our service data star. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to move static up here.
Okay.
It needs to be there now. And sort of what he did here, you'll see this now.
Okay.
So let's open up. See, this will make more sense to you now. Let's open up Connect 4 for a second, because Connect 4, we load all these things up, right? Yes. So API services, right? Here's our back end for a second. What do you see here? All these Go embeds, right?
Yes.
For the different websites that we have.
Yep.
Okay. So if I do the same thing, right? He sort of did this. So I'm going to move this to the top of our main for a second. Okay. For our purposes right now, like I could bring this in. I mean, I don't think it's a terribly, where am I here? Big deal, but well, let's not bring it in because I just don't want to bring the confusion in just yet. All right. Now, if you notice, right, I sort of use this mechanic, which is the name of the folder embedded.
Yeah.
Okay. And he did the same thing. He did static star, and I've never had to put the star, so that's interesting to me.
So that would get like everything under static?
Yeah, but I'm in the wrong, I'm hacking on the wrong thing right now, so let's come back here. Yeah, I don't know why he needed the star, because I don't use the star here, do I?
No.
Okay, so we'll just keep it like this. This is in main. Okay. Now, if we go back to connect, you see that there's going to be a section, okay, where we start the API service. So let me just steal some code here. We're now in, I don't know. Yeah, we're going to get rid of this code anyway. So right now in run, what did we do? We do this, we do this, we do the handshake. Run is sort of held, right?
Yeah.
And then, right, so before we do this, yeah, so before we do any of this, we've got to get the server up and running. So I'm wondering if we don't sort of do that first. So let's do that first. I don't know what happened here, but because we're already going, run is already going to be holding the connection, which is super interesting to me. So
okay,
we're going to need our mux package here, which I think, keep data star closed for a second. I have a mux package already, right? And the mux package sort of does all this already. It calls the chat app routes. But in our case, I don't need the chat app routes. I need just the Datastar app routes. Okay. So I'm going to have to clean this up a little bit too, because there are some things that we need from this.
Okay.
Now. So I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. I need this. I need run. Now, let's think about what we need from run now. The point here is I don't need any of this from run, right? We're putting this somewhere else.
Yep, that's our...
But run is, okay, no, it's okay. Run is supposed to potentially block, right?
Okay.
I mean, if we look here, it expects run to block. So we could do the following in our particular case here. I can steal the code that we're sort of dealing with here. I'm in the app layer. Normally this stuff would be done in main.
Got it. Okay.
Because it would call run, and it's assuming that run will block. So we're going to have to do some things in here that we would normally do in main. All right. So I'm going to take, instead of using mux, we're going to do it here. So let's see. Run. Do we have a logger in here? We don't have a logger in here. So let's, this is app level stuff. So, and the client app doesn't have a logger. So let's just do this for now. There's a lot of cleanup here, but I just want to get it. Logger.logger. Let's assume we've got a logger in here, and I'm going to pass that in. Okay. So then on the web UI side,
we have a log. Yep.
I can keep it lowercase for this purpose. All right, I've got a log there now. So this will be UI.log. You have a logger. This breaks because it wants a logger, but we've already passed it in, so there's no problem there. Now, we're going to call web new app. This needs the logger.
Lowercase.
Okay. I'm going to have that. And then once we've got the new app, okay, that's like what that mux stuff does. That would be sort of this. We're going to need, I'm going to steal this for a second. Let's come back here. We need to add, I need this with file server. I just have to see how it sort of connects in here.
Oh, okay.
See app.fileserver. An app is coming from our web app. So if I come back here, see app.fileserver, right?
Yep.
And so, so embedded static. So we have that. What did we call it? I need that too, right? So, that, but that's good. Then I can leave this here. Okay, I can put this back here now because this is where I need it. Okay. Since we're going to move it there.
Oh, okay. So you can put that into...
I can leave it here, which is cool, right? So this is all, normally I would want to do this in main, but I need to do it in run.
Got it.
So this would be this. Okay. The directory, I think would be static, right?
So
I look
static.
at, so normally I would just do, oh, we'll just be static. Okay. But I'm loading in static, so it would be static. And then it's sort of the path, which I think we can say, oops, static. Yeah. So
okay,
let's say I follow that sort of. Actually, it might be root. We'll find out. It might be root to get to static.
Okay.
We'll see if we're getting it. But so you can see here now we got a new app. We bind the file server to the static folder.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, it can't be this, can it? Because we already have a root path. Let's try this first and see what happens. It may or may not be that. I don't know.
Got it.
Okay. Now we need a server. Okay, let me do this. Now we need a server. The server needs an address. What was he using? Let's do it this way. So he had a server here, right?
Yep. His
address was this. I don't know where port came from.
The ENV. I think he did it in the ENV, or he had hard coded it somewhere.
Yeah, I don't remember where. Let's see something here. This is, no, it's the wrong one. How come it's not giving me the diff on this?
I think it was 133.
That's right.
UI.go.
Oh yeah, what does it say over 83. There? Oh, he had port, but he called it what? 1337? Oh no, dude, let's just hard code it. So for our purposes right now, let's just hard code it. 1337, that's what he did?
Yeah.
Okay. The read timeout, let's just hard code it right now too. I don't really have a config going, so I can use read timeout is 10 seconds. That's a time duration. So time.second. I use a write timeout of 120. That's fine. Now, he's not setting these. I'm not going to set these either. I'm just going to do what he did here. Okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to have these two things. Then what we're going to do is essentially we've got to hold this hostage here. So I'm going to bring in this code. All right. So we do that. We do this. We do this UI.log.
UI.
Yeah, UI.log. I don't really have a context here. So let's construct a context because now I need it. So everything up here is that. Let's add a context background. Now what I can do is get our handlers up and running. That's what this does.
Got it. Okay.
And then I'm missing the shutdown stuff though. So let's bring that in. Let's do that. This is UI.log. So initializing API support, right? We got our shutdown channel. We start it, and then all of this is UI.log. Nice. Shut time down. Let's just say you got 10 seconds for now. Not Saturday.
Saturday.
2nd. And then you're shutting down. So what this is doing now, we've got some more red here, but we'll deal with that in a second. I still need I must have gotten rid of that constant. Shit. I don't know why this isn't working. Where this is like a diff and I don't get the changes. That's weird to me.
So I'm bringing up the actual...
Yeah, I don't know why that's sort of broken. But go back into the code you have and tell me what the constant's supposed to be.
What was it? It was...
Update web subject. Deleted some shit too fast. Oh, web.update. The editor already knew.
Okay.
Which is good. And then... Where is the red here, bro? It's supposed to be in here. Oh, there it is.
The bracket.
Yeah. Return. No. Okay. So this now doesn't return until we're basically signaling it to shut down, which is good. It's a cleaner shutdown than what he had.
Okay.
Anyway. All right. So now instead of this in main, we have it in the web UI, which I think actually makes more sense when you think about it.
I mean, we're using it for the web UI.
I might move this underneath run and okay. I hate when there's no. That's a whole nother day of stuff. But so now this UI, web UI, we have to fix some of this, right? We know what needed. So things that we needed access to on the handler side was this, and was this, right?
Yep.
And then everything else, we were able to sort of maintain exported. And right now it's not going to matter. So, but we can clean some of that stuff up later. I hate this, by the way. I rather construct in the value semantic mode and then show where you're sharing it. So remember where we had this. I don't think we need this anymore. What we want is .compare. Oh, and if that equals 0, right? That's what we were trying to compare.
Yeah.
0, yeah. All right.
Yeah. That's what we ended up doing.
All right, 0. So that gets rid of that. So we're green now, right? We're green. Oh, Delaney's around. All right, cool. So we're green now. We've got our everything we needed from the UI side still here. Everything that he did. We just now are using our web framework, which happens on run. So now when we come here, it's upset about something there, but I might just restart the first.
There's no UI in Data Star anymore. We moved it down.
Okay. And that's because we've got app new. There is no more. So we didn't know enough to get rid of it. Well, we're using it somewhere. So where are we doing it? Oh, here. So that changed. So we don't want that, right? Datastar.new. Let's go back here. So this is still UI, right?
Yep.
We have a new, which takes a logger and a my account. It takes a, we got rid of this, but it takes a logger. We don't have a logger here. Okay, let's go back for a second. It takes a logger. Now, we have our own logger here, right? And it doesn't look like I was constructing that like I would for the cap, right? So for the cap, right, in main, we do this. Since we want logging, that's our logger. We can pass logger here. And then the same thing in cap, right? Say I did this. And if I go back to cap, we sort of steal this, right? So we're following the Ardan sort of constructs here.
Yeah.
So we've got all that in here. Now we've got sort of this.
Extra parentheses.
Yeah, I got an extra parenthesis. So now I've got on the new, should be a log. So if I come back here, our UI.new, take a logger, take a my account. So something is like.
But the path changed, no? API services data star.
Maybe.
Isn't.
Yeah. There's something definitely off, right? It's just a matter of finding it. Okay, so that's good. So that's our data star UI. And instead of calling that UI, right, we could call it something else.
Like
but
DS UI.
But so there's our data star UI. There's our client new app. There's our set. There's our handshake. There's our app run. We know that app run is going to call this run.
Mm-hmm.
And so that should start the server up for us. And we should see some logging around that, right? And we're not using this, so we'll just do this for now. So now I'm worried about the static a little bit, right?
Okay.
I'm worried about this. This might be off. We'll have to look at that. But everything else should technically work. I'm just going to double check something that we've got. Actually, I learned the interesting way that I don't need this wrapper. That satisfies the same signature.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, like we don't need it. I don't know what I was smoking that time. So now when I see it, I sort of clean it up. Apparently, we have it in Connect 4. We still have the wrapper somewhere, right? Because I pulled that from Mux. So that's the same signature. It's silly. So we construct our Mux with what we're missing though is the route call. So what we're missing is the route call, because if you look at service, I knew we were missing something. You see how we call routes? Yeah. We didn't do that here, right? And we're kind of doing everything here. So now what I need to do here is say datastar_app.routes. We're given an app and given a UI log and given a my account, which is a UI.myAccount. We add those routes to the system. Now, my question is, yeah, I'm adding the routes before I do the file server stuff. So that's the one piece I was missing there, adding the datastar routes to that. Now, I think we have a problem with this. Now we have a cyclic import problem.
Cyclic import?
Yes,
okay.
Datastar imports UI, and now we've just asked UI to import Datastar, which is usually why this Mux stuff is sort of separated from this, because you need the routes, and the routes are right. They belong here with the Datastar. Now there is a way that we can do this. It's the same thing we sort of did with service. So if I come back here for a second. And no, not this Connect 4. Let's look at this one. You'll see that these packages have a build packages that determine which routes you want to build with. And the general idea is maybe you want to build it with just CRUD routes and reporting routes. So you can build separate instances of this for write only, read only,
okay,
and deploy these services sort of separately, right? Now, the way that worked was the idea of an interface. So if I go to the Mux package, and I'm trying to avoid a mux package right now, but you see how we have the route adder that has sort of an add, it takes an app and a config.
Yep.
So I'm thinking that what we need, if I did the following or something, okay, a route adder interface, which let's just say takes routes, which takes an app, it takes let's just follow this signature for a second. I need to detach myself from the cyclic import.
Got it. Okay.
So essentially what has to happen is I need the ability to construct these routes. I need this, right? Now, maybe we don't do it with an interface because look at what's happening here. New app. The problem is that new app is constructing this. It needs it, but it's constructing it. So it gets constructed here, and it needs it. Now, what we could do is the following. This could get us out of it. This could get us out of it. Let's define a type called a route function that looks like this.
Okay.
And let's pass in the route function here.
Okay.
And just for fun right now, let's save the route function. Okay? Because then all I have to do here, where is it? Here,
there. Yep.
UI dot route function. That just got rid of the import.
And that detaches it. Okay.
And then here, I can just give it routes as a function. Now what's super interesting about that is now my routes function can be unexported. And I'm passing in the function that knows how to sort of do all this. Now, if I come back here.
And that's because you did that route function type. That's what that's called, right? Function type.
Yeah. It's a function type, right?
Okay.
And I can even just say, call it routes. Call it routes. Routes. There's your routes. And now here you're just saying, right? Load up the routes. Now, this is still upset about something. So what is it upset about? It's going to say it doesn't implement it. Okay. So let's double check what we've done here. I'm saying that I want a function that, let's go back here. Maybe the type changed on me. So I'm defining a type called routes, which takes a web app, a logger, and a common address. And I'm saying you need to pass me a function of that type.
Okay.
Routes is a function that takes a web app, a web locker, and a common address. And I'm asking for UI routes. I know this function supports that. So can I use routes, value of type this? Oh, this returns an error, doesn't it? Mine returns an error now, doesn't it? So this will have to return an error.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Now we're good. So now what's happening is we're going to call the routes. Now, what's nice is I can return errors here, right? So you see how I got rid of the dependency without an interface, which would then we would have needed a type. We'd had to construct something. I want to pull my hair out. Here, I just needed a function right now that gave that to me. And now during the construction here, I can just pass in the routes function. It's so compact right now anyway, and this is the only routes function we need, that this is going to work. It's going to work just fine.
Got it. Okay.
I'm going to turn this off because the yellowness is driving me crazy and I don't need it anymore. So let's see where we are now. So, oh, this is interesting. See how we're doing a new here because it needs it? So I have a problem because I'm doing new here.
Oh.
Now, that new happens here, doesn't it? So now we got a problem because we can't do this twice, right?
Yeah.
I tucked this away in here, but this doesn't get called until we call routes. Routes doesn't get called until we're already in a... That's interesting, right? So when we call routes, we construct our API. So for sure, we can't be doing this. This has to be passed in. In other words, this has to be passed in. Can't be doing this here. So everything now changes a little bit. Yeah. Things are going to change again. So that means that if we come to the route call, I need this because this has to be passed into this. Fine. I'll fix that in a second. The problem is that, dude, this just got super complicated. I need to construct the UI here. We agree with that.
Yes.
So if I'm going to go back to this being this.
Okay, exported.
But the problem is that I have a chicken and the egg problem again. I'm in the process of constructing a UI, right?
Yep.
So here I am in the process of constructing a UI. It has to do these things. And at the same time, I need the routes function. Fine. So I come in here then and I say, fine, data star app.routes. Let's see. Now, it doesn't like this because
UI routes, volume argument.
Because of it needs the UI in here. So it can't ask for a UI anymore. Yeah, I don't know how to deal with this just yet. I'll deal with that in a second. So if I come back here and I say, on the construction of this, I need something that does web app, logger, and common address, web app, logger, common address, right? All right, I just want to get this out of my way for a second, so I can just get that out of the way. Saying that's not going to work, obviously. But what this does is I'm telling the new UI, this is the logger, here's the account, and these are the routes that you're going to be managing. Okay. Now, when we go to UI new, it's going to do all of this. It's going to come back and we're going to have a UI. And then at some point here, run is called. Okay, but we've got a UI. Now, what might have to happen with the current structure that we have is this. I might have this sort of backwards here. This is how we traditionally do it. Okay. But now what we might need is on the construction of the UI. See, I don't like this because all this code that's here under UI really needs to be in Data Star app.
Okay.
This is the problem. All that code in UI really needs to be here.
Got it.
But I don't want to do that just yet. So what's happening is I have to construct the UI to give it to the client in order to call run. I've told it that this is how you get the routes up and running. Okay. But we know that Data Star app needs the UI because it has to access it as well. So we had this idea of when you called new app, you could pass in the web UI. But we can't do that anymore because we're in the process of sort of constructing it, right? Because again, in main, unfortunately, we're not constructing a Data Star app right now. We're constructing a new UI. So we've got some things that are backwards here.
Yeah.
I'm going to untwist it, but I can't untwist it until at least we've got this. So from our perspective, I'd rather be constructing a Data Star app, which then internally constructs a UI, which then could be returned.
Yeah.
Right? Which I think originally I had that in here, didn't I? I did, right?
Yeah, you did.
I did. I had that in here. I had that in here. So think about this for a second then. Think about this for a second. If this can construct the UI, which is what we need, okay, and it returns an app, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to do something really bad. I'm going to just do it right now. It's going to be bad. We're going to fix it. I promise. Okay. I'm going to fix this. This new app constructs a web UI. Okay. So here's what's interesting now. I have this idea in my head that if on main we do a data star app.new app, I can give it the log and I can give it the account.
ID, yeah, ID, Mike, ID.
Then what does it return? It returns an app and or an error, right? Okay. Now, well, let's just call it a data star app for now. Now, the good thing is I've made this exported.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I don't like it. I ain't happy about it, but it's there. Okay. And so when we create a data star app, we have access to the web UI that got created underneath.
Got it.
Okay. We still have a problem though. Okay. Because during the construction of the data star new app, we still need to define the routes, right? We haven't done that yet. We decided that we were going to do that in run. Okay. So at this point, I have a web UI at the app layer. However, when you call routes, you tend to already have that. Now, technically, if I already have that, let's just say I already have this. By the way, I'm not happy with anything that's happening here right now. I mean, not happy at all with anything that's happening right here. But assuming all of this so far, then all I want here I'm hacking this, and you can see the relationships are wrong because they are wrong.
Yep.
They're absolutely wrong because even this now has to be exportable if you're going to be returning it. Okay, which I never do at the app layer.
No.
So imagine this now. Since we already have it, now it's just a matter of binding the routes to what we're doing here. Okay. Remember, data star has to import the UI at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is fine for a second, maybe, because now it doesn't work anymore because we stayed away from data star. You see, when that was all sort of unique. So the problem is that what I'm doing in UI, I can't really separate from what we consider here to be because I've got to bind these routes which belong to data star app, but the implementation of these routes require a UI, and I can't have UI then on run so to do all this. Like these parts for sure. So based on everything that I'm seeing right now, okay, and we're already at 1:30. I've got to integrate this stuff into Web UI here. Yeah, I don't think we have any choice but to merge these two things, primarily because we really want the run function here to, right? The run function has to hold this.
Yeah.
And the state that we're creating in here, right? Some of the state that we're creating in here, it really needs to belong sort of there. Now, maybe we make an argument that it's what's screwing us up is the run function. Because the framework that we have assumes that run's going to sort of block.
Got it. Okay.
And this package is not allowed, cannot import, can't import data star app.
So then the way to solve this is to combine them both in a way.
One way to solve it is to combine it both. Another way to solve this problem is potentially another interface where this UI has an interface related to what it needs from the data star app. Okay, but we're going to go back to this problem here. All right, the data star app. So I didn't like this either, right? In the sense that we sort of did that and then we got the UI implementation. I just don't see any way around this. So let's just do the following. And we'll just take another half an hour to sort of do this. Let's say we hack this in here for a second. All right. I'm just going to keep the case of the cases where that is for a minute. And then here on new, we're doing all that, right?
Okay.
We do this construction. And then for whatever reason here, this would be A. And I steal all this, right? I don't need routes here. So let's say we did that for a minute. And I bring this in. Okay. So I don't need it twice. And we do that. Okay. So I've got the new app, and unfortunately it's going to have more than, so this data star app is not just the router, it also has the UI components, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's your new. Now I take run. Okay. And another thing I might do is just call new file handlers.go. So there's the new. I'm going to fix the run in a second. I'm going to move this stuff to, should have been, I moved it in the wrong place, so I'm going to fix that. Data star
okay.
handlers, right?
Yeah.
Just keep our handlers there for a second. Then you have run, but this is really app, right?
Yep.
Okay. I'm just going to dump everything in, and then we'll clean all that stuff up. So then you've got essentially all this. Oh, I didn't need to do that. And then you got all this. We'll clean it up.
Yep.
Okay. That moves all that in there. And I don't know how much of this we need, but we'll bring it all in too. We're not going to need routes anymore. All right.
Got it.
We already have that. And I would say that that's there. So now what we do is we move this up a level, move that up a level. So what you end up with is no more UI package.
Got it.
We got a lot of cleanup, but what we, again, I thought I disabled.
You had to restart the extension.
Oh, all right. So let's restart it. So we've got that in there. You've got this in there, right?
Yep.
Okay. So now, ugly, we'll clean it up. You have this now. You have this. So anywhere that we see UI dot, would be a dot. Okay. And our routes are going to be here now, right? Cool. So let's see what it says here. A dot. Oh, but routes is just a function at this point. And the routes requires a web app. Fine. Requires a, oh, so we got to fix that, right?
Yeah.
So what do we really need here? I need an app. So if I make this a method now, okay?
Okay.
Then I have access to this, right? So now I can come in here and say, no, a dot routes. And it requires just that.
Okay.
So we've got that. Then this is an app for A, and we're going to come back here. Okay. So that gets confusing because that's really a client app. Just fix that like that. So still haven't fixed that one yet. So that's all good, right?
Same thing there. App and UI.
So that's current. Oh. Now this is going to be client app. Fine. Now you got app, right? And whatever. A dot. Clean up messages later. Here's an app. I'm not doing a full replace because I want to see where this is happening.
Got it. Okay.
It's okay to take this a little slow. So this is client app, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fine. A, client app. Maybe we just call that client too, but that's fine. And now our handler. Okay, so now we've got the UI problem, but we are the UI, aren't we? So if we come back here, this now should take an app, shouldn't it?
Yep.
We agree, it should take an app.
And it's package UI still?
No, it's going to be our app package. Now, again, I'm going to have to deal with the buggy bugs just to make this work better, but we'll come back in here. So I need the, but this is already in Data Star app, right? Like that's what's changing. I can get rid of this file. We'll regenerate it. So I'm already going to be a Data Star app. So this can be app A, right? Because that's what it is. It's an app.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, an app. And then this will be an app A. You're an app A. Oops. Yeah, it jumped on me. I could have did the D too, but it's okay. Not a lot of code here. So that's that. I can even, we got to fix the, I got to fix the generate, but forget about that for a second. Now you take an app and you take current messages, you see? Essentially, I get rid of that. And that's client app, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are you still worried about? There's still some UI somewhere?
Right there.
Now, page chat is a function that is, right? Yeah. But I don't have the Go code. So this is what we're going to do now. Let's go into the make file. And we're going to fix this make file. So now when we do a generate, right? We've got to point it to
Data Star app.
This.
Yeah.
And when we do generate, we got to point it here. I don't know if you need that, but so I should be able to run. I thought we called this, we'll call this Data Star, right?
Yeah.
All right, I should be able to run this. Oops. Complete, and there it is. Generated the Go code. So that should help us a little bit now. So let's see where it's complaining now. Here. And that should just be A, right? Or it's chat fragment. So it's actually a function.
Yeah, it's.
We're green, dude.
Okay.
There's still code cleanup, but we're green because now the Datastar app is everything related to a new app, the run function, which now, right, can call routes directly, which is now a method off of app A. So we have access to those methods, and we pass in that app. So now from a main perspective, what happens? Well, this all now is better because now what we do is we can pass in Datastar. Yeah. This is what we needed to do sort of from the beginning, right?
Let's just make it all. We were trying to decouple and
there's two things sort of going on here at the app layer. There's the handlers that we need. So we've separated them out here. Okay. And then there's support to sort of make this compliant with the UI. Now, what gets interesting to me is this, right? I can now probably make this unexported. I probably can now make this. That should have been the first smell.
Yep.
And now, yeah, and rename this to NC, right? And that's okay. Like, we know now you have access to it. That's fine. And that's good. So that's even better now because now at least all of this is, we can better organize these things too, right? Like I don't like the order that they're in. We do have the client app. We have a visible. You got the NATS connection. You've got the NATS stuff next.
Yep.
You got my account. And then you got these sort of maps. And even this, rename, can be unexported. Feels much better.
Yeah.
So now we've got a new app. It comes in. We construct it. We've got our run, which basically constructs the same thing he was doing.
Yep.
But we're using our own sort of mux. We'll see if the file server piece works here. And we can control that shutdown with a control C too, much better. And then all the rest of the code that he had related to what the UI can implement, right?
Got it.
And everything here was the unexported API. And now we've got the handlers themselves sort of separated. We can see that. We're able to bind the routes here, right? Which happen at the run level, but we're separating them. And now we've got our code snippets that are all part of this as well. Now, something here changed, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Hasn't seen. It couldn't find that, so I did that. And I can always generate that again, and we're good. Okay, so I'm going to turn this off again because I hate the yellow, the mellow yellow. I'm going to have to talk to those guys about that. Okay, so now our Datastar, right, constructs a Datastar app. We look at this from a project perspective now. We've got a Datastar service, right? Makes sense mental model wise.
Yep.
Then at the app layer, we have a Datastar app package. Mm-hmm. It's a little more, it's larger than most of our app level packages are.
Yep.
But it has to implement both what a client UI is. But it makes sense now that it's here within the scope of our structure, right? I'm wondering if I do a make tidy, if anything changed. Okay. So we now have implemented everything that Delaney implemented, right?
Yeah.
And now we see the components that he did and how he's giving us at the handler level, some nice support here to hold that sort of tight. And we didn't really read the code yet on how he's funneling stuff. We did a little bit, right? We know that this is receiving anything that's going over the local NATs.
Yeah.
To sort of fire. Now, I'm super curious if this even comes up. So we're going to do the following. The data star reload, I'm going to run this first locally to see if it even comes up.
Okay.
It should regenerate app domain app star. It should run main. So let's do this and see how sort of well we did here. Okay, so here we're going to do the make run cap. Like I said, we're going to keep this separated.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm going to run this reload one.
Got it.
Now you can see our regular logs here.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So it's startup, initializing support on host 1337. So if I do localhost 1337, dude. Dude. Now that broke.
Okay, that changed.
That broke. But it came up, right? It came up where, but we're calling it. So if I do this, Kevin, it got called, right?
Yep.
So, and it looks like the style sheet stuff that I did work. So what's happening here is I am doing request started completed. Now I am sending a
status code okay.
I'm sending an okay, but I think I'm sending a 204. And he may not be expecting a 204, maybe expecting a 200. So what I say we do, just to validate that, and I don't think he necessarily needs anything, right? So if we look at this real quick, we go to web, all right, response. Remember, I'm passing a nil.
Yes.
So when it's nil, I'm sending a 204. Okay.
Okay.
Now, I can send him an arbitrary document, which by default then would be status okay, right? And so what we could do is just sort of this. Instead of the nil, I need a data structure that we can play with. So I don't need a whole nother model, but let's just put it here. So type, I'll call it okay struct, okay? And as far as I'm concerned, that's good, right? And then the problem here is now I need to implement the encoder interface so we can pass it.
Got it. Okay.
So I'm going to implement the encoder interface. All right. And essentially, it's just going to sort of JSON that out. Now, what that would mean now here is I can just do a return, okay, true.
Okay.
And that will send a 200. Now, every time I've done this, it's been rebuilding it because I've got that working,
because it's on reload.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which now means that I should be able to reload this. We've got the messages again. Okay, so that wasn't the case, right? Because I know I'm definitely sending a 200 now.
Yeah.
When you see the status okay, that would tell me here under SDK errors where we've got codes. I guess as I'm using there, right? I have to look to see when we log in the middleware. In the middleware here, we log the status code, right? But that status code has a stringer interface. So if I go to that map, you see.
Okay, no content.
So technically, I mean, we're seeing okay, right? Because the okay was
So that's
is a no content. So that's interesting to me that when we were sending nil, so there, I mean, there may be a bug there since the status code was set. Yeah, I have to look at this code because when we send nil,
because the OK we're getting is from us.
All right. Well, look, when I send nil, I was sending status no content.
Okay.
For sure that was happening. My question is, again, it's been a while since I've looked at this code. As the logger is going through, we check to see, I may be just hard coding OK in here because, yeah, you see, I'm just hard coding OK if there was no error. So from a log perspective, a 204 or 200 would be the same. But at this point, I'm sending, I know I'm sending a 200. All right. So something's wrong with the other thing. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to undo this change, right? Let's just keep it nil. Just for now. Okay. That's going to restart it. Now, we know something here. We know this is coming in. We know this is being executed. We know that we're publishing. So maybe we're not receiving it on the update, right? We have no logs here.
Okay.
There are no logs here. So why don't we do this? a.log.info context message received nats event, right? We should see that in the log, right? It doesn't matter what the event is, the channel, it's a nats message, right? So we could do this. Read.data, which is, I think, a slice of bytes. So we do string. So let's do this, right? Nats event. Sometimes when I really want to make sure I see it, I put some stars around it for my brain, right? So now that restarted, right? Could not stop context. So it just did a shutdown. That's fine.
Get path updates.
So let's do the following. Let's refresh. So that just did a request completed for the whole thing, right? So now if I say Kevin, that's exactly what's happening, right? The nats side isn't working.
Yeah, it's not receiving it.
Now let's add another log line just to validate that when we're in here, we're not checking for an error, are we?
No.
Now, in this case, we'll just do an a.log.info context message. Just call it error. Maybe it's because the context deadline we added to nats. Let's take a look at that too, but let me just at least put this here. This is actually what it wanted to do is better. Okay. Info logger. Why are you complaining? Oh. Okay, good. So let's take a look at what Mohammed said. So when we, yeah, but this is for creating the connection. So let's do some things here. I'll increase this to 10, but let's add some logging here. So, because he has a wait for server, right? So a.log.info starting that server. I don't need the A here. Okay. Wait for server. I don't know what that does. Well, I mean, we didn't get an error connecting, right?
No.
Connect to, because it did start, but let's just double check. I mean, oh, wait, I need key values here. So startup status. Okay, status connected. I don't think this is the problem, but we'll add some logging here. In fact, if we look at this now, starting NATS server, connected to NATS, connect to NATS, NATS.
So both of those.
We didn't get any errors, right?
No.
So I know we're connected to NATS, and however the NATS stuff works, we're some stuff here though. I would think that we'd see some data here.
Yeah,
right?
something.
So let's check that at least for a long second. Front end shouldn't be front end anymore, right?
No.
NATS data ZARF. So that was definitely a problem because that didn't exist.
Yeah, it was going nowhere.
And we're assuming that that already exists. So I'm shocked that this didn't.
Yeah, that it didn't fail.
Right? Like there is no front end here unless it was creating it hidden. Do you see a front end? Oh, there it is, right? So one, I don't like that, but yeah. So let's remove. Front end shouldn't be there. It should have been Zarf data nats. Zarf data nats. I'm going to do something here. Where are we? Here. I'm going to hit Control C. That's shut down cleanly. Okay. So if I do this, it's funny that didn't fail.
No.
But it created the folder anyway, right?
Yeah.
Now listen. Now watch this. It did. Maybe it did fail here. Hold on. So starting NATS connected. It says connected. Default contact. Initialize API support. Router. And then suddenly we have a shutdown completed. Context could not stop. Okay. We've definitely got a weird problem with some context here. So let's do a couple things again. I don't think this context is the problem because it's just connecting and we're not seeing errors. We would have seen errors, right? Where do we get, who calls new app again? New app is called in main. So if we come back to data star main, we have new app. We would have seen this. The whole thing would have shut down.
Yeah.
The next problem is in run, which is here. And I only have a background here. So we're not getting a SIGINT. We're not getting a SIG term. That's the only way this context would cause a, but that's only used on the time that we shut down. So, oh, cap is shutting down. Oh no, service cap. Okay, let's fix that. This isn't service cap. This is service data star. So let's go back and look at reload for a second. So it's holding. There's nothing restarting it here, right?
No.
Okay. I'm going to clear the window. I'm going to refresh. We got the root. We got the chat update data star, though I don't see anything happening there. And we got the favy icon. Fine. But now if I come here, we see data star chat change started and completed. What I don't see is the actual handler getting called. Okay. I have a really bad feeling. Let's double check something.
Yeah, see.
That's change user, right?
Yeah. Let's see if that's even getting.
Because we don't see the error, right?
No.
like we should see these log lines at the end of the day.
Yep.
And that we don't see any errors here, right? So
update. Okay, so that one's.
I see it, right? Like
Yeah.
it's calling the nats for sure. But for whatever reason, and it's 2 o'clock, so we got to end here. But for whatever reason, like I don't know if this is really working in terms of getting initialized because we're doing the publish. It's for sure not failing, right?
No.
It's for sure not failing. Technically here, we should be returning an error too, and we're not. Which is not helping, right?
And we're returning.
And I didn't do that, so that was bad. But, which would mean that we would see this in the logs anyway. Okay, so I'm not seeing that at all. We would have seen that in the logs, and we didn't. So this is sort of weird to me. And the only thing I can think of is that when we created this Nazi thingy, we're running it from the root. I mean, one thing we can do is see if it gets recreated, right?
Yeah.
It got created.
Okay, so it is.
There's just no data under here, so I don't understand. Oh, let's do it here. Like, there's no data there, right? So even when we do this and we're clean here, and I do a push, and I do that, and we see that it came in, and it sees that we did the publish. We're not getting it. So let's take a look at the string one more time. But I would have also expected that if we did that, we saw some data there, and we don't, right? So, so that's all sort of weird to me. Okay, well, we're way over sort of due here, but that's a publish. Maybe we're not subscribing to this. This should have been used twice. There's a subscription mess. We've lost our subscription.
Oh, okay. Maybe.
But wait, that would be in handler. Let's take a look at handler again. No, I want to see this. I feel like there's the publish to write text, right? But if I go in handler, there's the channel subscribe. Chat updates. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to have to shut this thing down. But for some reason, when we do the chat updates, it's not, it's a chat change user. Are we ever seeing chat update? Yeah, right here, right?
Chat update, data star. Yep.
And so on chat update here, I mean, that's not failing. We're getting in this loop.
It's just not like.
It's the same thing. Web.update. All right, this is the last thing we're going to do, and then we're just going to have to hold it until later. The more important thing is we understand the structure now, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let's just call this SSE status. We'll just call this SSE loop, right?
Okay.
All right, because that's, now we're in the loop.
Yeah.
And let's also double check that this isn't happening, right? Context done. Well, I should really do it this way, or we're not going to know where we're at. So I'll do status. Context done, right? And then this should be all right. So at least we have this, and we know if this thing died. So let's just at least do this last thing, and then we're gonna have to get back to it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make any sense. This is the we copied this code, right? So where is SS? Oh, geez, down there. But we're never getting into that. So, all right, let's do following. I'm just gonna restart it anyway. Okay, so that started. We're going to do a refresh. Now, here we are, right? Here's the get for the chat update.
Subscribe.
We subscribed. We're now in the status. Oh, we should not see a request completed for this. And we don't, right? We're in the SSS loop. We should never see a request completed for this UID. So when I click on Kevin, now we got into the chat change user. We had the publish, right? We had the status code, but Nats isn't working. So without Nats, we don't have the engine to sort of drive it. We just don't have the engine. So for some reason, right? And a part of my brain feels like there should be files here, and there aren't, right? But for some reason, and we're just going to have to maybe look at it on those two are fine. Those two are fine. Yeah. So for some reason, Nats isn't working. It has nothing to do with data star right now. It has to do with this.
Yeah, why?
Because we never actually chat update SSC loop, right? This is the trace ID for that. And it's running right now. We don't see a request completed. Well, I restarted it there, but now this, I know what this context deadline is. It's trying to shut the thing down. It somehow gets into this signal, which is fair. I hit Control C at some point, and I'm giving it 10 seconds to shut down,
okay.
And it's, for whatever reason, not enough. So whatever, it just couldn't stop gracefully. I don't particularly care about that. That has more to do with us not using context properly, but that can be another day. Bottom line is, we're going to have to try to figure out why. Now, again, we can just bypass Nats altogether and do it ourselves, but that requires a little bit extra work, you know?
Yeah, it worked before. Why would it?
Yeah, there's no reason for it to have not worked. We have whatever this embedded Nats thing is, we've got a directory. We know the directory's right. It recreated it.
Yep, the directory's right.
He wrote this to wait for it to be ready. We know that we're connecting to it. So that's not a problem. We would have seen this in the logs. We don't. We also know that at a handler level that we're getting into this. We know that we're in our SSE loop, which is great, which means we know that we've done this. And so the bottom line comes into the publish, which is not failing for the same update subject that we're subscribing to here. And it's the same NC, and the NC, let's just triple check our NC, right? Our NC is our client. So we've got a single client
NS client
connected to this.
NS client.
Yeah, so that's fine. We use that to get a client. And this is how he did it, right?
Okay.
And then he had a client. So all handlers, all connections are using the same sort of client to send and subscribe. So I don't know. This is where we might need Delaney's sort of help to understand why the NATS isn't working. We can build a little hack program too, maybe to figure it out. But if this was nil or wasn't our app, I could understand that. But it's not. It's not failing at any level.
Chat updates. And what does the bottom of chat updates look like?
No, remember, we're locked in a loop.
Okay.
This is why when we try to shut down, it's timing out sometimes because actually, this is the wrong context to be using. That's also not helping for the shutdown. It should be that context there, not the request context. That's our context at this point. But that's fine. All right, let me push this code. We're way overdue. I think I had something going on today too that I just missed. Let's do a git add, git commit -am data star refactor. But what's kind of cool is even if the NATS thing isn't working, we don't necessarily need NATS. I could get rid of NATS, right? But we now have a much cleaner project structure, right?
I agree. Yeah.
Much cleaner project structure where when we're building the data star, we're using the data star domain now, which happens to have everything that he did related to data star in one place. We spent some time trying to keep that UI separated. That didn't work, right? And so now it's just a mystery of this. However, on our next show, we could rip out NATS. One of the things I did want to sort of talk about, I'm going to disable this again, was maybe ripping out NATS because I think it was getting in the way of, one, for sure, it gets in the way of us being decentralized, right? But NATS is going through a pretty bad time right now. They're fighting with the CNCF about their project and rights and access to it.
Okay.
It's kind of a mess, what's happening there. And in the reality of it all, didn't I just disable?
No, you enabled it.
Oh, I enabled it. Shoot, disable that.
And restart extension. Yep.
Yeah, I don't want all the yellow. So there's a big mess going on over there. And the reality is we don't necessarily need it, okay? I mean, and it's not even working for us here anymore, is it? So we could play with some, I think in between today and Thursday, we write some hack programs to figure out why this isn't working to start with. I like the idea of embedded NATS here, but the reality is this, okay? If I go back to where we're keeping our notes here, okay? We've created the data star domain. I think that's great. I think keeping our client stuff here and the different storage mechanics is fine. I wouldn't move that.
Yep.
Right? So a couple things I wanted to sort of talk about here, right? Like, so we got to fix the embedded NATS before we start the next show, or we just do it ourselves, all right? Where we'll implement a package that can maintain this same sort of one signal to many thing, and we can get rid of the sort of dependency. Another thing I've been thinking about was removing NATS above the cap level. So in other words, this, right? Like we're using NATS because it was easy just to plug all the caps into it. But every time I say that we're using NATS there, what does everybody else say? You don't need the cap. NATS does everything. And my point was, I'm just using a little NATS to, right, give me some glue up there. This isn't about NATS. So if I get rid of NATS, then the question becomes, how do we do cap to cap sort of communication? Now, I would make this argument at some point. We already need to know, technically, I already need to know your ID, don't I? Or I can't talk to you.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then one could argue that I also then would just need to know the public IP address for your cap. Right?
Yeah.
I just need to know public. In fact, the same way we do the private key, public key, we could do that. So if you knew my public IP address and you connect it to me, I now know your public IP. Now we'd have peer-to-peer communication across that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It would just be the same way we've got to publish our IDs, we could publish our servers. That would solve the file server stuff too, because then it would just be a peer-to-peer connection to do that. So the cap would, and this doesn't have to maintain a hot connection. You could just do this over HTTP, where I know what your IP address is, so I want to send a message. Connect, here's a message, drop. It doesn't have to be a hot message. I want to send you a file. Connect, send it to you, drop. See, if we did that and we get rid of NATS, we have more of a peer-to-peer. Now, in order for us to play, we will need to use ngrok to give us essentially a public domain, right? That gives me access to your server or whatever, right? We can integrate that into the makefile and we can do that. So I think one of the things I want to do is remove NATS, right?
Okay.
And go sort of peer-to-peer. Now, even if we did that, again, I'm trying to stay what?
Decentralized.
I'm trying to stay completely decentralized.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want, what if NATS pulls down NATS tomorrow, which is quite possible with the way things are going? Our system's done. It's done, son. Now, what could also happen is this. You're going to maintain a database of users and their IDs and their where they are, right? We could add another flag to that would identify if that user is, say, private public. So if I connect to you, I could query your user database.
Oh, okay.
And you could give me, we could, right? Anything that's marked as public, right, could be shared maybe. I don't know. That maybe there's a security issue with that because now you've just shared my, maybe I don't like that, right?
Yeah.
I don't like that. But it would be nice if we could find a way at some point to have a more public way of, like a phone book of some level.
Okay, I'd like to see who's
the phone, right? But the phone book would have to be distributed too. So that's where I was getting at, right? I'm just going to throw the idea of a phone book of sorts because,
which you kind of had.
Yeah. Right.
Underneath, you had the NATS.
So remove NATS. Oh, remove NATS to peer-to-peer networking semantic, right? We can do that. We could do an SSE and keep the connection alive, though. Why stay that heavy, right?
Yeah.
Maintain a local database of existing caps. So you're a cap. I could already have the caps that are out there. But I think that would be sort of blind to do that. I would want to, if I'm sending it to you or Mohammed, knowing what cap they're on. Now, you could change caps depending upon where you are on the planet, but, right, record what the cap IED is for a user, for a group. We know that changes over time. So I kind of have that already there, right?
Yeah.
I think that would be interesting. I think, though, what I want to do before we do that is sort of this.
The AI agent mode.
Yeah. I would really like to get into AI because this is working. That's fine. I'd like to get into AI agent mode and get that to work first and then rip Nats out altogether. But I don't like leaving the data start thing broken, even though I'm just going to move forward with the TUI going forward. So between now and Thursday, we need to see if we can get Nats working. If we can't, then Thursday's show is do it yourself.
Yeah.
Right? And rip Nats out and own it. This is why I always love to own the code sometimes, because now it's broken and I don't know where it is how to fix it. And it's frustrating, right? I'm going to lose time here. So I'm going to try to do this today or tomorrow, figure out why that's broken. If I can't, we're going to come back on Thursday. We're just going to rip that out. Then I got to go to Brazil next week for GopherCon, right? Look at my calendar. So we'll have the Tuesday, Thursday show. The next week I'll be in Brazil, so
I'll be in Missouri also next week. I mean, I can do it remote,
but we can do the Thursday show because I'm going to be back. I'm going to be back on Thursday, so we can't do the Tuesday show, but we can do the Thursday show.
Okay.
And then on the Thursday show, we should be able to start this one way or the other. So either on Tuesday we can start this. I mean, on Thursday we can start this because we figured out why that silly little code's not working. Or start this a week from Thursday. There's so much stuff we can do here, right? But
we have a lot of directions.
So we can play. So I felt like today was good because of the, let me save these comments, because of the big refactoring.
Yeah.
It sucks we lost some time on... It's funny, that just worked out of the box.
It did.
If you really think about it.
That was a big refactor.
I mean, that was a, where am I here? That was a big refactoring and it worked out of the box. The only thing that didn't work is the damn Nats thing. Yeah. And it's not even my fault. That all code looks good.
And it was running before.
And now we're more in line with the way the project works. It's better mental models, better things going on. You see how little code there is on the Datastar side. But you see the power of Datastar and what it's trying to accomplish, right? So here's my last sort of 2 cents on the Datastar stuff. I think that tech is going to be great for Go developers that have these personal projects that are going to be sort of isolated to what they're doing.
Okay.
But do you think Eric could write code like that?
No.
Okay, there's my point.
No.
So most front-end devs are going to know JavaScript frameworks. They're going to want to work in that world, right? Yeah. And there's too many of them. And I always ask, when I meet a front-end dev, I always ask, what front-end are you using? I just met another one this morning, and they were like, I'm using React. And I'm always like, I don't really care what you use as long as you build a static website.
Yeah.
But I go back to, if you're building a company and you're building a product and you've got to hire people, which you do, right? And the idea is to hire experienced front-end devs. You're not using this.
No, it's more like for someone who lives in the back end and just wants something that can stand up quickly.
This is like the Node world, but now for Go, right?
Yeah, it's like hybrid. Yeah. You have to be kind of in the middle. You have to have knowledge of both sides.
And so this is, though the tech is cool and it's super powerful, and I could for sure use it.
Yeah.
You could for sure use it.
I like it.
Right? And I think for small things that we're doing, maybe it's better than the vanilla JS stuff. Mm-hmm. But I always go back to, can Eric do it?
Yeah. Can someone else maintain it other than us? They would have to be strong in Go, and
they'd have to be strong in Go. We have the tools. We have it restarting. It's not like you don't have that. Mm-hmm. You can debug it. But when the answer is Eric can't do this, then
production level system is
when you're going to build a company and you want to be able to hire four front-end devs to move stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to take that into account. But really interesting sort of thoughts and ideas in the engineering. So let's hope that before Thursday we can figure out why that Nats thing is broken, so we can just sort of move on from it. If not, we'll rewrite it, and then we're going to do the AI stuff going into next week, and then we'll come back in and talk more about how do we rip out Nats on the back end so we can be more decentralized. Especially, it's kind of a beautiful time for it, because if you search NATS and CNCF, you'll see what's sort of happening right now with this tech. And I'm not saying that it's disappearing tomorrow, but remember, this is owned by at least the system that we're on right now, this global NATS. They could shut that down tomorrow, and then what?
Yeah, and then our system's down.
Our system's down, right? Why? Because it's not as decentralized as it otherwise could, right?
Yeah, we're still depending on that.
All right, we were on way too long, but we missed some time there. I hope everybody enjoyed this and some of the changes that we made and followed along with the diagrams. And I'm sorry that NATS didn't work, but it will be working by Thursday. So I'm going to shut this down. Appreciate everybody. See you on Thursday.